The morning sun breaks across the Valley of Mexico with a quality of light that seems older than time itself, casting long shadows across structures that have stood silent for more than 1,500 years. There is something about the way the dawn touches these ancient stones that makes you feel as though you are watching the first sunrise, or perhaps the last. The air here carries weight, a thickness that has nothing to do with altitude or humidity, but rather with the accumulated presence of centuries, of millions of footsteps, of prayers whispered in languages that no living tongue remembers how to speak. This is Teotihuacan, the place where the gods were born. Even its name, given by the Aztecs who discovered these ruins centuries after they were abandoned, speaks to the awe that these structures inspire. The Aztecs, themselves master builders, stood before these pyramids and could not imagine that mere humans had raised them. They concluded that only gods could have accomplished such a feat, and perhaps they were not entirely wrong, though not in the way they imagined. The Pyramid of the Sun rises before us like a mountain that has been taught geometry, a massive structure that dominates the landscape with a presence that is both serene and overwhelming. It stands 65 meters high, its base covering an area nearly as large as the Great Pyramid of Giza, yet it possesses an entirely different character. Where the Egyptian pyramids are sharp and angular, pointing toward the sky like stone prayers, the Pyramid of the Sun sits heavily upon the earth, massive and brooding, as though it is less reaching toward the heavens than holding something within itself, cradling secrets in chambers of stone and earth that have remained sealed for millennia. For years, centuries even, this pyramid was thought to be simply what it appeared to be, a monumental structure built for religious ceremonies, a place where ancient priests climbed steep steps to commune with the sun, to offer sacrifices, to petition the cosmos for favor. It was understood as a temple, vast and impressive, but fundamentally comprehensible within the framework of what we know about ancient civilizations and their relationship with the divine. A sacred mountain built by human hands, serving human spiritual needs, however strange or distant those needs might seem to modern minds. But then, deep within the heart of this ancient giant, archaeologists made a discovery that changed everything. They found something that should not have been there, something that made no sense within any conventional understanding of this structure's purpose. They found mica. Not traces of mica, not decorative elements or small pieces used for ornamentation. They found massive sheets of mica, thick layers of this crystalline mineral carefully placed within the pyramid structure, hidden from view, serving no decorative purpose, carefully positioned in ways that suggested intention and purpose, though what that purpose might have been remains one of the most tantalizing mysteries in all of archaeology. Mica is not native to this region. The nearest sources lie thousands of miles away, in what is now Brazil. The ancient builders of Teotihuacan expended enormous effort to transport this material across vast distances, and then, having accomplished this incredible feat of logistics, they buried it within their pyramid, invisible to anyone who might walk upon its surface or climb its steps. They hid it away as though it were more precious than gold, as though its value lay not in being seen, but in being present, in fulfilling some function that we, with all our modern knowledge, struggle to comprehend. This discovery opens doors into rooms we did not know existed, raises questions we had never thought to ask. What did the ancient builders of Teotihuacan know about mica that made it worth the extraordinary effort required to obtain it? What properties did they value? What were they trying to accomplish? And perhaps most intriguingly, what does this tell us about the level of knowledge and sophistication possessed by this mysterious civilization that built a city capable of housing more than 100,000 people at a time when most of Europe lived in scattered villages? The story of this discovery and the questions it raises takes us on a journey through time and space, through ancient engineering and modern science, through spiritual practice and technological possibility. It asks us to reconsider what we think we know about the ancient world, to entertain possibilities that challenge our assumptions about the progression of human knowledge. It invites us to walk the Avenue of the Dead, that broad ceremonial way that runs through the heart of Teotihuacan, and to consider that we might be walking through the remnants of something far more sophisticated than we have imagined. The avenue stretches before us, running from north to south for more than 2 kilometers, flanked by pyramids and platforms, palaces and plazas. The Aztecs called it Mica, the Avenue of the Dead, believing that the structures lining it were tombs, though we now know they served other purposes. Yet the name persists, and there is something fitting about it. For this is indeed a place haunted by absence, by the ghosts of knowledge lost, by the shadows of a civilization that rose to extraordinary heights and then vanished, leaving behind questions carved in stone. As we stand here in the growing light, looking up at the Pyramid of the Sun, knowing now what lies hidden within its massive bulk, we find ourselves confronting a mystery that is both archaeological, technological, and profoundly human. What were these people reaching for? What did they understand that we have forgotten? What secrets did they bury in layers of mica, carefully positioned, deliberately hidden, waiting for millennia to be discovered by minds that might finally be ready to ask the right questions? The wind moves across the ancient plaza, carrying with it the scent of dust and time. Somewhere in the ruins, a bird calls, its voice echoing off stone walls that have heard countless voices raised in prayer, in song, in the conducting of ceremonies whose purpose we can only guess at. The sun continues its climb into the sky, the same sun that the ancient builders watched, measured, celebrated, and perhaps, in ways we are only beginning to suspect, attempted to harness. This is where our story begins. Here, in the presence of these ancient stones, here where the known world ends and mystery begins. The Pyramid of the Sun stands before us, keeping its secrets. But we have learned enough now to know that those secrets are deeper, stranger, and more wondrous than we ever imagined. The mica buried within its heart is not simply an anomaly, not just an interesting archaeological footnote. It is a key, though what door it unlocks remains tantalizingly unclear. It is a message sent across thousands of years, though we struggle to read its meaning. It is evidence of knowledge and purpose that challenges everything we thought we understood about the ancient world. Come then, let us begin our exploration. Let us walk the Avenue of the Dead and climb the steps of the pyramid. Let us descend into the chambers where mica lies hidden, catching no light, serving no visible purpose, yet present nonetheless, deliberately placed, carefully preserved, waiting to tell its story to anyone willing to listen carefully enough. Let us open ourselves to the possibility that the ancient world was stranger, more complex, and more accomplished than our histories have generally allowed. Let us prepare to be surprised, confused, amazed, and ultimately humbled by what these ancient builders achieved and what they knew. The mystery of the mica beckons. The Pyramid of the Sun holds its counsel. The Avenue of the Dead stretches before us, inviting us to walk its length, to explore its secrets, to contemplate the enigma of Teotihuacan and the extraordinary people who built it. The journey will take us deep into the past, but it will also challenge our present understanding and perhaps point toward futures we have not yet imagined. For in unraveling the mystery of why ancient builders buried massive quantities of mica within their most sacred pyramid, we may discover something profound not just about them, but about the very nature of human knowledge, aspiration, and achievement. The sun continues to rise. The stones wait, patient as they have been patient for 15 centuries. The mica lies hidden in darkness, its secrets preserved. And we stand at the threshold, ready to begin our investigation into one of archaeology's most compelling mysteries. When you first approach Teotihuacan from the south, the way ancient visitors would have arrived, the city reveals itself slowly, emerging from the landscape like a vision or a dream taking solid form. The mountains that ring the Valley of Mexico form a natural amphitheater, and within this bowl of earth and sky, Teotihuacan was laid out with a precision that speaks to careful planning and sophisticated understanding of space, geometry, and the relationship between human structures and the natural world. This was not a city that grew organically, spreading outward in the haphazard way that most ancient settlements developed. This was a city that was conceived whole, planned from the beginning according to principles that governed everything from the width of its streets to the orientation of its buildings. The first thing that strikes you is the scale. Modern visitors, even those who have seen photographs and read descriptions, find themselves unprepared for the sheer size of what lies before them. The Pyramid of the Sun is not simply large, it is monumental in a way that challenges the mind's ability to process. Standing at its base, looking up at the stairs that climb its face, you find yourself confronting not just a structure, but a landscape, a geometry made solid, a mathematical idea expressed in millions of tons of stone and earth. But before we reach the pyramid itself, we must walk the Avenue of the Dead, for this is the proper approach, the way the ancient pilgrims would have come. The avenue is 40 meters wide, broad enough for great processions, for thousands of people to move along its length simultaneously. Its surface was once covered with a layer of limestone plaster that would have been brilliant white, reflecting the intense Mexican sun, creating a river of light flowing through the heart of the city. Today, much of that plaster is gone, weathered away by centuries of rain and wind, but you can still sense what it must have been like, that gleaming pathway lined with pyramids and platforms, leading the eye and the feet northward toward the Pyramid of the Moon, which stands at the avenue's northern terminus like a guardian or a goal. On either side of the avenue, structures rise in careful progression. These are not arranged haphazardly, but according to a plan that becomes apparent only when viewed from above or mapped carefully. The spacings between buildings, the relationships of size and position, all follow patterns that suggest deep knowledge of geometry and perhaps astronomy. Some researchers have noted that the layout of Teotihuacan's major structures mirror certain stellar constellations, though this remains a matter of scholarly debate. What is beyond debate is that nothing here was placed by accident. Every stone, every platform, every pyramid occupies its position for a reason, even if those reasons remain obscure to us. Walking the avenue in the soft light of early morning or late afternoon, when the sun throws long shadows and the stone glows with warm color, you find yourself slipping into an altered state of consciousness. Perhaps it is the scale of the structures, which dwarfs human proportions in a way that modern buildings rarely do. Perhaps it is the silence, broken only by the wind and the occasional call of birds. Perhaps it is simply the accumulated weight of history, the knowledge that you are walking where countless others have walked, that these stones have witnessed ceremonies and dramas whose nature we can only guess at. Whatever the cause, there is something about this place that changes perception, that makes you feel as though you have stepped outside of normal time into something deeper and older. The Pyramid of the Sun sits to the east of the avenue, offset from it in a way that is clearly deliberate. Its orientation is not aligned with the avenue, but rather with a point on the horizon where the sun sets on certain significant dates. The pyramid faces 15.5 degrees north of west, an angle that has been calculated with precision and that causes the sun's rays to strike the pyramid's face in specific ways at specific times of year. The builders of Teotihuacan were master astronomers, observers of the sky who tracked the movements of celestial bodies with an accuracy that would not be matched by European astronomy for more than 1,000 years. As you approach the pyramid, its mass becomes almost overwhelming. The base measures approximately 225 meters on each side, creating a footprint that covers more than 45,000 square meters. The structure rises in 4 main tiers, though originally there may have been 5, to a height of 65 meters. To put this in perspective, the pyramid contains more than 1 million cubic meters of material. The logistics of gathering, transporting, and placing this quantity of stone and earth using only human labor and simple tools staggers the imagination. Estimates suggest that it would have required thousands of workers laboring for decades to complete the structure. But numbers, however impressive, cannot capture the experience of standing before this monument. There is something about its proportions, the way it rises from the earth, that affects you viscerally. It does not soar like a Gothic cathedral or puncture the sky like a modern skyscraper. Instead, it sits, massive and eternal, as though it has always been here and always will be. There is a weight to it, not just physical, but metaphysical, a sense that it is anchoring something, holding something in place, or holding something within itself. The stairs that climb the pyramid's western face are steep, 248 steps rising at an angle that makes the ascent feel more like climbing a ladder than walking stairs. Modern railings have been installed to prevent accidents, but in ancient times, pilgrims would have made this climb with nothing to hold on to but their faith and determination. The ascent is deliberately challenging, designed to require effort and focus, transforming the physical act of climbing into a ritual, a meditation, a test of will. By the time you reach the top, your legs are burning, your breath comes hard in the thin air of the high plateau, and you are changed by the effort, prepared in a way you were not when you began at the bottom. From the summit, the view is extraordinary. The entire city spreads out below you, and from this height, the careful planning of Teotihuacan's layout becomes clear. You can see how the Avenue of the Dead runs straight and true, how the other pyramids and platforms are positioned in relation to it, how the city extends outward in a grid pattern that speaks to sophisticated urban planning. To the north, the Pyramid of the Moon rises, smaller than the Sun Pyramid, but positioned so that it appears to crown the avenue. Beyond it, the mountains form a natural backdrop, and you can see how the pyramid's silhouette echoes the shape of the mountain behind it, as though the builders were creating a dialogue between human architecture and natural landscape. But the true secrets of the Pyramid of the Sun are not visible from its summit or from any external vantage point. The real mysteries lie within, buried in the pyramid's core, hidden from sight and from the sun that gives the structure its name. For years, scholars believed they understood this pyramid. It was a temple platform, they said, a base for a shrine that once stood at its summit where priests conducted ceremonies. It was a sacred mountain, built to honor the sun and perhaps to provide a point of connection between earth and sky, between human and divine. This interpretation made sense. It fit with what was known about Mesoamerican religion and architecture. It explained the pyramid's form and function in ways that were satisfying and complete. Then came the excavations that changed everything. As archaeologists began to explore the pyramid's interior using techniques that allowed them to probe beneath the surface without destroying the structure, they discovered tunnels and chambers that had been sealed since ancient times. These were not burial chambers, as might be expected. They contained no tombs, no golden treasures, no mummies wrapped in fine textiles. Instead, they contained something far more puzzling and ultimately far more intriguing. They found mica, sheets of it, layers of it, carefully placed within the pyramid structure. Not small pieces that might have been decorative or ceremonial in the conventional sense, but substantial quantities of this mineral positioned with obvious care and purpose. The discovery was initially met with confusion. Mica? Why mica? The questions began to multiply faster than the answers.
The first and most obvious question was about the source of the material. Mica is a generic term for a group of sheet silicate minerals that have a layered structure, allowing them to be split into thin, flexible sheets. It is found in various places around the world, but the chemical analysis of the mica found in the Pyramid of the Sun revealed something startling. This particular variety of mica, based on its composition and crystalline structure, originated from deposits located in what is now Brazil, more than 3,000 kilometers from Teotihuacan. Think about what this means. Ancient workers, using technology that we assume was relatively primitive, transported massive quantities of a mineral across a distance equivalent to traveling from London to Baghdad or from New York to Bogota. They did this without wheeled vehicles, which were not used for transportation in Mesoamerica, without pack animals capable of carrying heavy loads, which did not exist in the Americas before European contact. They did this through forests and across rivers, over mountains and through territories controlled by other peoples, facing challenges we can barely imagine. And having accomplished this extraordinary feat of logistics and determination, they buried the mica within the pyramid, hiding it from view, ensuring that no casual observer would ever know it was there. This immediately tells us something important. Whatever the mica was for, it was not decorative. If you go to all the trouble of obtaining a rare and beautiful material from thousands of miles away, and then you hide it where no one can see it, you are not concerned with how it looks. You were concerned with what it does. The mica was functional, not aesthetic. It served a purpose that was more important than display, a purpose that required it to be present but not visible. But what purpose? Here we enter the realm of speculation and mystery, where the evidence we have raises more questions than it answers. To understand the possibilities, we need to understand mica itself, to know its properties and why ancient builders might have valued them. Mica is an extraordinary mineral. Its most obvious characteristic is its structure. It forms in sheets that can be split into layers thinner than paper, flexible yet durable. These sheets are transparent or translucent, allowing light to pass through them while providing a barrier. In more recent history, before the development of modern plastics and glass manufacturing techniques, mica was used for furnace windows and other applications where you needed to see through something that could withstand heat. The material is a natural electrical insulator, preventing the flow of electrical current. It is also highly resistant to heat, able to withstand extremely high temperatures without melting or losing its structural integrity. It does not conduct heat well, making it an effective thermal insulator. These properties make mica valuable in various modern industrial applications, from electrical equipment to thermal shielding. Now, the question that haunts researchers is this: did the ancient builders of Teotihuacan understand these properties? And if so, what were they using them for? This is where the mystery deepens, where we find ourselves confronting possibilities that challenge our assumptions about ancient technology and knowledge. The conventional interpretation of pre-Columbian American civilizations depicts them as sophisticated in some ways, architecture, astronomy, mathematics, but lacking in others, particularly in what we might call practical technology or applied science. They had no metal tools to speak of, no wheels for transportation, no written language in the way we usually conceive of it. How then could they have understood the electrical or thermal properties of mica? And even if they understood them, what use would they have had for electrical insulation or thermal shielding? These questions hang in the air like the dust that rises from the ancient plaza, visible in the slanting sunlight, but impossible to grasp. They invite us deeper into the mystery, challenging us to reconsider what we think we know. The mica is there, that much is certain. It was deliberately placed, that too is beyond question. Everything else, the why and the how, the purpose and the knowledge, remains tantalizingly unclear, a puzzle waiting to be solved by minds willing to think beyond conventional boundaries. The excavation of the Pyramid of the Sun has been an ongoing process for more than a century, a slow and painstaking work carried out by successive generations of archaeologists, each bringing new techniques and new questions to the ancient stones. The pyramid we see today is not exactly as it was when it was first built, nor even as it was when the Aztecs discovered it. Time, weather, and human intervention have all left their marks. Understanding what has been discovered requires understanding the history of how the pyramid has been explored. The first major archaeological exploration of Teotihuacan began in the early 20th century during a period when Mexican scholars were working to reclaim and understand their country's pre-Columbian heritage. In 1905, the Mexican government authorized excavations at the site, led by Leopoldo Batres, a controversial figure in the history of Mexican archaeology. Batres was ambitious and energetic, perhaps too much so. In his eagerness to reveal the pyramid and restore it to what he believed was its original form, he removed tons of material from the structure, sometimes with more enthusiasm than care. His work was later criticized for being too aggressive, for potentially destroying evidence that more careful excavation might have preserved. Nevertheless, Batres succeeded in clearing the pyramid of centuries of accumulated earth and vegetation, revealing its basic form and allowing for the first modern studies of its structure.
As excavation continued over the following decades, archaeologists discovered that the Pyramid of the Sun, like many Mesoamerican pyramids, was not a single structure, but rather a series of constructions, each built over or around the previous one. This was a common practice in Mesoamerica. Pyramids were often enlarged and renovated, sometimes multiple times over the centuries, with new layers of stone and plaster added over older constructions. This created structures that were in effect architectural time capsules, preserving earlier phases of construction within later additions. For archaeologists, this layering provides valuable information about how the site developed over time, but it also makes excavation more complex and controversial, since revealing inner structures sometimes requires disturbing or destroying outer layers. Within the Pyramid of the Sun, archaeologists discovered evidence of careful planning and sophisticated construction techniques. The pyramid's core consists of adobe bricks made from sun-dried mud, millions upon millions of them, shaped by hand and stacked in careful patterns. These adobe bricks were then covered with layers of stone and finished with a surface of limestone plaster that would have been brilliant white when it was new. The amount of labor this represented is almost impossible to imagine. Every brick had to be made by hand, dried in the sun, carried to the pyramid, and placed precisely. The stone facing had to be quarried, shaped, and fitted. The plaster had to be mixed, applied, and smoothed. All of this was done without metal tools, using implements of stone, wood, and bone. But the construction was not simply a matter of piling up material until the desired height was reached. The pyramid was built according to a plan that involved precise measurements and careful attention to orientation and alignment. The structure is oriented to cardinal directions with remarkable accuracy, suggesting the use of astronomical observation to establish these alignments. The proportions of the pyramid, the relationship between its height and the dimensions of its base, follow mathematical ratios that some researchers believe may have had cosmological significance. Every aspect of the structure seems to have been carefully considered, designed according to principles that governed not just the physical form of the pyramid, but also its symbolic and perhaps functional meaning. It was during excavations in the latter part of the 20th century that the most startling discoveries were made. As archaeologists explored the interior of the pyramid using increasingly sophisticated techniques, including ground-penetrating radar and other remote sensing technologies, they discovered a cave beneath the structure's center. This was not a natural cave, but rather a chamber that had been modified and incorporated into the pyramid's design. The discovery was significant because Mesoamerican cultures often associated caves with sacred power, with portals to the underworld, with places where the boundaries between worlds became thin.
The presence of this cave suggested that the pyramid might have been built around it, that the cave might have been the reason this particular spot was chosen for such an important structure. Further exploration revealed a tunnel system, chambers that extended through the pyramid's body, spaces that had been sealed in ancient times and remained untouched for more than 1,000 years. And within these spaces, in chambers where sunlight had not penetrated since the pyramid was completed, archaeologists found the mica. It was not scattered randomly or used as decoration for floors or walls. Instead, it appeared in substantial sheets, layers of it positioned in ways that suggested specific purpose and planning. Some of the mica formed what appeared to be a floor or platform in one chamber, a surface of overlapping sheets that covered a significant area. Other pieces were found in contexts that suggested they had been part of the pyramid structure, deliberately incorporated during construction. The discovery raised immediate questions. The first, as we have noted, concerned the source of the material. Analysis confirmed that the mica had come from deposits far to the south, requiring transportation across enormous distances. But beyond the logistical mystery of how the mica arrived at Teotihuacan, there was the deeper puzzle of why it was there at all. What did the builders know about this material that made it worth the immense effort required to obtain it? What were they trying to accomplish? To begin answering these questions, we need to understand the properties of mica in more detail. The mica found in the Pyramid of the Sun is primarily muscovite, one of the most common forms of mica, characterized by its light color and excellent electrical insulating properties. Muscovite mica can be split into sheets less than 1 millimeter thick that remain flexible and strong. It is chemically stable, resistant to weathering, and can withstand extreme temperatures without degrading. In modern applications, mica is used in electrical equipment as an insulator, in heating elements as a thermal barrier, and in various industrial processes where its unique combination of properties makes it valuable. Now, we must ask a question that may seem absurd at first hearing. Did the builders of Teotihuacan understand any of these properties? The conventional answer would be no, they could not have, because the knowledge required to understand electrical insulation or thermal properties requires a scientific framework that did not exist in the ancient Americas. We have no evidence that Teotihuacan possessed anything like modern electrical technology, or that they would have had any need for electrical insulators. Similarly, while they certainly used fire and understood heat, the idea that they would need industrial-grade thermal insulation seems anachronistic, a projection of modern needs onto ancient people who lived in a completely different technological context.
But this conventional answer becomes less satisfying the more we examine the evidence. The mica is there. It was brought from thousands of miles away. It was carefully positioned within the pyramid structure. These are facts that require explanation. If the mica was not valued for its electrical or thermal properties, then for what was it valued? Some researchers have suggested that the answer lies not in practical technology, but in symbolic or ritual meaning. Perhaps the mica, with its reflective, crystalline structure, its ability to catch and hold light, its appearance of containing fire or sun within its layers, was valued for magical or religious reasons. Perhaps it was seen as a sacred material, something that connected the earthly pyramid to celestial powers. This interpretation has merit and should not be dismissed. Ancient peoples often valued materials for symbolic reasons that had nothing to do with practical applications as we understand them. Jade in Mesoamerica, for instance, was prized not for its hardness or utility, but for its color, which was associated with water, vegetation, and life itself. Perhaps mica held similar symbolic value, associated with the sun or stars or some aspect of Teotihuacan's cosmology that we do not fully understand. But even this explanation feels incomplete when we consider the quantity of mica involved and the way it was hidden from view. If mica was symbolically important, we might expect to see it displayed more prominently, used in ways that would make its presence known and visible. Instead, the mica found in the pyramid is buried, concealed, performing its function, whatever that function might be, out of sight.
This suggests that its value was not primarily visual or symbolic in the conventional sense. It was doing something, serving a purpose that required it to be present but not seen. Here we arrive at a possibility that is both exciting and unsettling. What if the ancient builders of Teotihuacan did understand some of mica's functional properties, not necessarily in the way that modern scientists understand them, with equations and atomic theory and controlled experiments, but in an empirical, practical way, through observation and experimentation? What if they had discovered, through whatever means, that mica could do things that other materials could not? What if they had found ways to use these properties for purposes that made sense within their technological and cultural context, even if those purposes remain mysterious to us? This line of thinking leads us into territory that makes many academics uncomfortable. It suggests that ancient peoples might have possessed knowledge or capabilities that do not fit neatly into our current understanding of how civilizations develop and what technologies are possible at various stages of that development. It challenges the narrative of steady, linear progress from primitive to sophisticated, suggesting instead that there might have been pockets of advanced knowledge in the ancient world, islands of understanding that emerged, flourished, and then disappeared, leaving behind evidence that we struggle to interpret. The debate over what the mica means and what it tells us about Teotihuacan's builders remains active and unresolved. Researchers continue to study the pyramid, using new technologies to probe its interior without destroying it, analyzing the mica and other materials to learn everything possible about their composition and origin. But the central mystery endures. Why is the mica there? What were the ancient builders trying to accomplish? The stones keep their secrets, and the mica, buried in darkness, continues to wait, a material puzzle wrapped in the larger enigma of Teotihuacan itself. To truly understand the mystery of the mica, we need to comprehend the sophistication of the civilization that created Teotihuacan. This was not a primitive society building monuments through brute force and blind faith. This was a complex, organized culture capable of feats of engineering, planning, and construction that would challenge even modern builders. The city they created was one of the largest in the world at its peak, home to perhaps 125,000 people, making it larger than contemporary Rome in both population and area. This was a true city, not merely a ceremonial center, with residential districts, craft workshops, marketplaces, and a social hierarchy that included everyone from laborers to priests to the rulers who governed this vast metropolis. The level of organization required to build and maintain such a city is staggering. Consider the logistics alone. A population of 100,000 people requires food, water, shelter, and security. At Teotihuacan, all of these needs were met through systems that show clear evidence of centralized planning and control. The city was supplied with water through sophisticated hydraulic systems that channeled water from springs and diverted streams to provide for drinking, agriculture, and possibly ritual purposes. Food came from intensive agriculture in the surrounding valley and from trade networks that extended across Mesoamerica, bringing goods from the tropical lowlands to the south and from the more arid regions to the north. The city's residential areas show careful planning, with apartment compounds built in a standardized style that suggests central authority and organized construction. These compounds, which housed extended families or perhaps craft groups, were built around courtyards and included multiple rooms, drainage systems, and plastered walls decorated with murals. The standardization of these structures across the city indicates that their construction was not left to individual families building homes according to their own preferences and resources. Instead, they were part of a coordinated urban plan, built according to specifications that ensured consistency and facilitated the city's administration. The craft specialization evident at Teotihuacan speaks to economic sophistication. Different districts of the city specialized in different crafts, obsidian working in some areas, ceramics in others, the production of textiles, the creation of ceremonial objects. This level of specialization requires an economic system capable of distributing goods and services, of ensuring that artisans who spend their days making pottery have access to food they did not grow themselves, that farmers who produce maize can obtain the tools and other goods they need. While we do not know the details of Teotihuacan's economic system, the evidence suggests markets, trade networks, and probably some form of tribute or taxation that allowed the city's rulers to mobilize resources for large projects like pyramid construction. The artistic and intellectual achievements of Teotihuacan are equally impressive. The city's murals, which once covered walls throughout the residential and ceremonial areas, display a sophisticated artistic tradition with complex iconography and masterful execution. These murals depict deities, priests, warriors, and scenes of ritual that provide glimpses into Teotihuacan's religious beliefs and practices, though much remains unclear. The ceramics produced at Teotihuacan, particularly the distinctive cylindrical vases with their characteristic shapes and decorations, were prized throughout Mesoamerica and have been found at sites hundreds of miles away, evidence of the city's far-reaching trade connections and cultural influence. But perhaps the most impressive achievement, and the one most relevant to our investigation of the Mica mystery, is Teotihuacan's mastery of astronomy and geometry. The city's layout demonstrates sophisticated understanding of astronomical phenomena and mathematical principles. The Avenue of the Dead is oriented 15.5 degrees east of north, an alignment that has been shown to relate to various astronomical events, including the setting of the Pleiades star cluster. The Pyramid of the Sun, as mentioned earlier, is oriented to the point on the horizon where the sun sets on certain significant dates, specifically when it passes directly overhead, an event that occurs only in tropical latitudes and would have been observed and marked as significant by Teotihuacan's astronomer priests. The city's builders understood and applied complex geometric principles in their construction. The proportions of the major pyramids and the spacing between structures follow mathematical relationships that suggest deep knowledge of geometry. Some researchers have identified ratios and patterns in the city's layout that may relate to the golden ratio or other mathematical constants, though such claims remain controversial and debated. What is beyond debate is that Teotihuacan was planned according to a comprehensive vision that integrated multiple layers of meaning, practical, symbolic, astronomical, and geometric, into a coherent whole. This is the context in which we must understand the Mica mystery. The people who built Teotihuacan were not primitive in any meaningful sense of that word. They were sophisticated observers of natural phenomena, skilled engineers and architects, organized administrators capable of mobilizing large labor forces for complex projects. They possessed knowledge systems that encoded information about the cosmos, about mathematics, about the properties of materials and the techniques of construction. Much of this knowledge was probably not written down in the way we write things down, but rather was transmitted orally, through apprenticeship, through ritual, through systems of signs and symbols that we can only partially decode. Given this sophistication, the idea that the builders of Teotihuacan might have understood something about Mica's properties becomes less far-fetched. They were clearly capable of systematic observation and experimentation. They worked with a wide variety of materials: stone, clay, plaster, obsidian, jade, textiles, and understood each material's characteristics and appropriate uses. Is it really so incredible to imagine that through whatever means, they discovered that mica possessed unusual properties? That they found it could do things other materials could not? That they developed uses for it that made sense within their technological framework, even if those uses seem mysterious or even impossible to us? Let us consider what properties of mica might have been observable or useful to an ancient culture, even without modern scientific instruments. The material's ability to be split into thin, flexible, transparent sheets would have been obvious. This alone might have made it valuable for various applications, as windows, as protective coverings, as reflective surfaces. Its resistance to heat would have been discoverable through experimentation with fire. Its electrical insulating properties would be less obvious, but we should not assume they would be completely undetectable. Static electricity, for instance, is a phenomenon that ancient peoples would certainly have observed. The shock you get from touching metal after walking across a wool carpet, the way hair stands up in certain conditions. Could Teotihuacan's artisans have noticed that mica behaved differently than other materials in such circumstances? Could they have found uses for this property that we have not imagined? The thermal properties of mica are perhaps most intriguing when we consider possible ancient applications. Mica is an excellent thermal insulator, meaning it does not conduct heat well. It can withstand very high temperatures without melting or degrading. In modern industry, mica is used in furnaces, in heating elements, in situations where you need a material that can handle heat without failing. Now, the conventional wisdom would say that ancient Teotihuacan would have no use for such industrial applications. But let us think more creatively. What if the builders were trying to create specific thermal conditions within certain chambers of the pyramid? What if they were using fire or some other heat source for purposes we do not understand, and they needed insulation to control how that heat dissipated? What if mica was part of a system that maintained certain temperatures within sealed chambers? This might sound like speculation, and it is, but it's speculation grounded in the physical evidence. The mica is there. It was placed deliberately. It served some purpose. We are simply trying to imagine what that purpose might have been using what we know about mica's properties and what we know about Teotihuacan's capabilities. The alternative is to shrug and say it was merely symbolic or ceremonial, which may be true but feels unsatisfying given the effort involved in obtaining the material and the way it was hidden from view. There is another property of mica worth considering, its piezoelectric characteristics. Certain types of mica, when subjected to mechanical stress, squeezed, bent, compressed, generate small electrical charges. Conversely, when exposed to electrical fields, mica can produce mechanical vibrations. This piezoelectric effect is exploited in modern technology in various ways, from microphones to sensors to precise positioning systems. Now, before dismissing this as irrelevant to ancient Teotihuacan, consider piezoelectricity is not something that requires modern technology to observe. If you had pieces of mica and you manipulated them in certain ways, particularly in combination with other materials like quartz crystals, which also have piezoelectric properties and which were available to Mesoamerican cultures, you might observe phenomena that seemed strange and potentially powerful. You might notice sparks or odd sensations or sounds. You might, through experimentation, develop ways to use these effects for purposes that made sense within your worldview and your technology. Is this what the builders of Teotihuacan were doing? We do not know. We may never know with certainty. But the evidence allows us to ask the question, and the asking itself is valuable because it pushes us to reconsider our assumptions about what ancient peoples knew and what they were capable of achieving. The conventional narrative of human technological development tends to be linear and progressive, first simple tools, then more complex tools, steadily advancing toward the modern era. But what if this narrative is too simplistic? What if there were peaks of knowledge in the ancient world that we have not fully recognized? What if civilizations like Teotihuacan understood things that were later forgotten, knowledge that vanished when the city was abandoned and its traditions broken?
The Pyramid of the Sun does not stand alone. It is part of a larger complex, a sacred landscape that includes the Avenue of the Dead, the Pyramid of the Moon, the Temple of Quetzalcoatl, and numerous other structures, all arranged according to principles that encoded astronomical, mathematical, and symbolic meaning. To understand the Mica mystery fully, we need to see it in this larger context, to understand how the pyramid functioned within Teotihuacan's ceremonial and possibly technological infrastructure. The Avenue of the Dead runs through the heart of this complex, a grand boulevard that would have been the site of processions, ceremonies, and rituals whose specifics remain largely unknown to us. Walking its length from the southern entrance toward the Pyramid of the Moon in the north, you pass through a carefully orchestrated sequence of spaces and structures. To your left and right rise platforms and pyramids of various sizes, each presumably serving specific ceremonial functions, housing particular shrines or ritual spaces. The overall effect is of movement through a sacred geography, a journey that is as much spiritual as physical,
each step taking you deeper into the heart of the Holy City. The spacing and arrangement of structures along the avenue follow patterns that become clear when mapped and measured. The intervals between major structures relate to one another mathematically, suggesting that the entire avenue was conceived as a single vast work of architecture that extended for more than 2 kilometers. Some researchers have proposed that the avenue might have functioned as a kind of astronomical instrument, with the positions of buildings marking sightlines to significant celestial events. While such claims remain speculative, they point to the level of sophistication with which Teotihuacan's builders approached their work, integrating multiple purposes and meanings into a single architectural vision. At the northern end of the avenue stands the Pyramid of the Moon, smaller than the Sun Pyramid, but positioned so that it serves as the visual terminus of the entire complex. The plaza in front of the Moon Pyramid is surrounded by smaller pyramid platforms, creating a ceremonial space that must have been the site of important rituals. From this plaza, looking south along the avenue, the Pyramid of the Sun rises to your right, dominating the vista, while the Temple of Quetzalcoatl is visible in the distance to the south. The entire panorama speaks to careful planning, to an understanding of how structures relate to one another visually and spatially, creating experiences and impressions that reinforce the sacred character of the site. But beyond the visual and ceremonial dimensions, there are hints of something else, something less visible but potentially more significant. Throughout Teotihuacan, archaeologists have discovered evidence of sophisticated hydraulic systems, networks of channels and drains that controlled the flow of water through the city. Some of these channels are openly visible, but others are hidden beneath structures or run underground, suggesting purposes beyond simple drainage or water supply. Water played important roles in Mesoamerican cosmology and ritual, associated with fertility, with life itself, with passage between worlds. The careful management and channeling of water at Teotihuacan may have served not just practical, but also ritual and symbolic purposes. Now here is where things become particularly intriguing. Some researchers have noted that water channels run beneath and around the Pyramid of the Sun. Moreover, the chamber where significant amounts of mica were discovered shows evidence of water presence or flow. This raises fascinating questions. Was water deliberately channeled through or around spaces containing mica? If so, why? What did the builders think would happen when water interacted with mica? Or what did they know would happen? Before dismissing this as fanciful speculation, consider what we know about water's interactions with various materials. Water conducts electricity when it contains dissolved ions, which natural water almost always does. Water can also be involved in various chemical and physical processes, particularly when combined with minerals and subjected to pressure or temperature changes. In modern technology, water is used in numerous applications involving energy generation and transfer, from hydroelectric dams to cooling systems to various industrial processes. Could Teotihuacan's builders have understood something about water's properties that led them to combine it with mica in specific ways? The idea seems almost absurd at first consideration. We have no evidence that Teotihuacan possessed anything like electrical technology or industrial machinery. Their artifacts show no metal electrical wires, no batteries, no motors, none of the apparatus we associate with using electricity. But perhaps we are looking for the wrong things, or perhaps we do not recognize what we are seeing because it does not match our expectations of what ancient technology should look like. Perhaps there were other ways of working with natural forces, other applications of principles we think we understand, which might be applied in unexpected ways.
Consider the broader landscape of pre-Columbian American achievement.
The Inca, without wheels or written language as we understand it, built an empire that stretched thousands of miles along the spine of the Andes, connected by roads and relay systems that allowed information and goods to flow with remarkable efficiency. They built structures with stone fittings so precise that you cannot slide a knife blade between blocks, and they did this without metal tools, using techniques that we still do not fully understand. The Maya, in addition to their achievements in mathematics and astronomy, created elaborate water management systems in cities built in challenging tropical environments, manipulating hydrology in ways that allowed large populations to thrive in places that might seem inhospitable. Throughout the Americas, ancient peoples accomplished things that continue to puzzle and impress modern engineers and archaeologists. Given this context of achievement, is it really so incredible to imagine that Teotihuacan's builders might have been experimenting with combinations of materials, mica, water, stone, perhaps other substances, in ways that produced effects they found useful or powerful? We know they were systematic observers of natural phenomena. We know they were capable of large-scale engineering projects requiring precise planning and execution. We know they had access to various materials from across Mesoamerica and beyond, including exotic minerals and substances whose properties they would have explored and tested. Is it not possible that in the course of this exploration and experimentation, they discovered things that we would not expect them to know? Things that do not fit into our neat categories of what ancient technology should look like? The mica remains the key piece of evidence, the thing that does not quite fit, that resists easy explanation. If it were simply decorative, we would expect to see it displayed prominently. If it were primarily symbolic, in a conventional religious sense, we might expect to find it in contexts that clarify that symbolism, associated with particular deities or ritual practices in ways we could decode. Instead, we find it hidden within the pyramid structure, buried where it could not be seen, positioned in ways that suggest purpose but do not reveal that purpose clearly. It is there, substantial and deliberate, waiting to tell us something if we can only figure out what questions to ask. Some researchers have proposed that the mica might have been part of what we might call an energy system, though that term immediately raises hackles among conventional archaeologists because it suggests fringe theories and pseudoscience. But put aside the baggage that term carries, and consider the basic idea. What if the pyramid, with its mica layers, its water channels, its precise alignments and geometric proportions, was designed to work with natural forces in ways that produced specific effects? Not supernatural effects, not violation of physical laws, but effects that emerged from sophisticated understanding and application of those laws, even if that understanding was framed in terms very different from modern scientific concepts. Throughout human history, people have sought to harness natural forces for various purposes. We build windmills to capture air movement, water wheels to harness flowing water, solar panels to convert sunlight into electricity. Each of these technologies works with natural forces using materials and designs that make specific effects possible. Is it conceivable that Teotihuacan's builders, starting from different premises and using different materials, might have developed their own ways of working with natural forces, ways that made sense within their worldview and their technological context, even if those ways seem strange or mysterious to us? The pyramid's astronomical alignments take on additional significance in this light. If the structure was designed not merely to observe celestial events, but somehow to interact with or harness cosmic forces, and here again we must be careful because this can quickly veer into territory that sounds more like fantasy than serious archaeology, then its precise orientation becomes functional rather than merely symbolic. The moment when the sun's rays strike the pyramid's face at a particular angle, the way shadows fall at specific times, the relationship between the structure and various celestial bodies, all of these might have been part of a larger system, a technology of a kind we do not normally recognize as such. This is admittedly speculative, but it is speculation anchored to physical evidence. The mica, the water channels, the alignments, the geometric relationships, the sheer effort invested in obtaining and positioning specific materials. All of this suggests purpose, intention, knowledge. The conventional explanations, ceremony, symbol, religion, are not wrong, but they may be incomplete. They may describe the context and meaning of what was done without fully capturing what was being done or how it was understood by those who did it. As we explore the Pyramid of the Sun and its mysteries, we find ourselves walking a tightrope between scholarly caution and imaginative possibility. On one side lies the risk of seeing too much, of reading into the evidence things that are not there, of projecting modern concepts onto ancient practices in ways that distort rather than illuminate. On the other side lies the risk of seeing too little, of being so constrained by conventional frameworks that we miss genuine evidence of knowledge and capability that does not fit our expectations. The truth, as usual, likely lies somewhere between these extremes, in a space where we can acknowledge both what we know and what we do not know, both the achievements of ancient builders and the gaps in our understanding.
The Pyramid of the Sun, with its hidden layers of mica, invites us into this space of uncertainty and wonder. It challenges us to think deeply about what technology means, about how knowledge can be embodied in structures and practices, about the ways different cultures might arrive at different solutions to similar problems. It asks us to be humble in the face of ancient achievement, to recognize that our modern technologies, for all their sophistication, are not the only possible responses to human needs and aspirations. And it reminds us that the past still has secrets to reveal, still has lessons to teach, if we are willing to listen carefully and think creatively about what we find in the ancient stones. Let us delve deeper into the specifics of the mica discovery and what modern analysis has revealed. The primary deposit of mica within the Pyramid of the Sun was discovered in what archaeologists refer to as the Mica Temple, a chamber or room within the pyramid structure that contains what is perhaps the most substantial and deliberately arranged mica found at the site. This chamber, when first explored, contained a floor constructed entirely of mica sheets, layer upon layer of the mineral carefully overlapped to create a continuous surface. The mica was not exposed, but rather buried beneath additional construction, sealed away as the pyramid was completed or modified. The care taken in placing this mica is evident when you examine the archaeological reports and photographs. The sheets overlap in a systematic way, suggesting that whoever laid them understood principles of coverage and connection, ensuring that the mica floor formed a continuous, unbroken surface. The quantity of mica required for this floor was substantial, representing significant material value, even without considering the distance it had been transported. The labor involved in preparing the surface, cutting and fitting the mica sheets, and then incorporating them into the pyramid structure would have been considerable. This was not a casual decision or a minor element of construction. This was a major investment of resources and effort directed toward a specific goal, though that goal remains tantalizingly unclear. Chemical analysis of the mica has provided important information while raising additional questions. The determination that the mica originated from Brazilian deposits, based on trace element analysis and crystalline structure, confirms the extraordinary distances across which materials were transported in the ancient Americas. But this also raises logistical questions that we can barely begin to answer. How was the journey organized? Who carried the mica across thousands of miles? What routes did they follow? How long did the journey take? Were there established trade networks capable of moving such goods, or did Teotihuacan send special expeditions specifically to obtain mica? What did they trade for it, or did they mine it themselves, establishing outposts or colonies far from their home city? These questions touch on larger issues about Teotihuacan's influence and reach. We know from archaeological evidence that Teotihuacan maintained extensive trade networks throughout Mesoamerica. Artifacts in Teotihuacan style have been found at Maya sites far to the south. Conversely, goods from distant regions are found at Teotihuacan, including jade from Guatemala, shells from coastal areas, and various exotic materials. The city was clearly a major economic and cultural center, able to draw resources from across the region. But the mica from Brazil extends this network far beyond what we might have expected, suggesting either incredibly long-distance trade connections or the existence of Teotihuacan influence in regions we have not typically associated with Mesoamerican civilizations. The physical properties of the mica found in the pyramid have been studied extensively. The sheets vary in thickness, but are generally between 1 and 5 millimeters thick, substantial enough to have significant structural presence while still being thin enough to be somewhat flexible. The mica is primarily muscovite, a potassium aluminum silicate that is one of the most common forms of mica. Muscovite has excellent electrical insulating properties, with a dielectric strength, the maximum electrical field it can withstand before breaking down, that makes it valuable in modern electrical applications. It also has a high melting point, over 1,000 degrees Celsius, and low thermal conductivity, making it an effective thermal insulator. It is chemically stable, resistant to most acids and alkalis, and does not degrade easily over time, which is why it has survived in good condition within the pyramid for more than 1,500 years. Modern researchers have conducted various tests and experiments to try to understand what the mica might have been doing in its original context. Some have measured electrical properties in and around the mica deposits, looking for anomalies or patterns that might suggest the material was part of some kind of electrical system. The results of such tests have been mixed and controversial. Some researchers report detecting unusual electromagnetic fields or variations in electrical conductivity in areas containing mica, while others find nothing of the ordinary. The challenge is that we do not know what we are looking for. If the mica was part of some ancient system, we would need to understand how that system worked in order to design tests that might detect its effects or remnants. Thermal analysis has also been conducted, examining whether the mica's insulating properties might have been used to maintain specific temperature conditions within certain chambers. Some sealed chambers within the pyramid show evidence of fire use, residues of burning, though whether these are ancient or more recent is sometimes difficult to determine. If the ancient builders were using fire in certain spaces for ritualistic or practical purposes, mica would indeed be an excellent material for controlling heat flow, for preventing heat from dissipating, or for protecting certain areas from high temperatures. But again, this is interpretation, trying to match what we know about mica's properties with what we observe in the archaeological record, always aware that we might be missing crucial context or misunderstanding the evidence.
One particularly intriguing aspect of the mica's placement is its relationship to other features within the pyramid. The chamber containing the mica floor is not at the pyramid's center or summit, but rather offset, positioned in a way that suggests it might have been part of a larger network of internal spaces. Some researchers have proposed that the pyramid contains a complex interior architecture, rooms and passages that form a system whose overall plan we have not yet fully mapped. Ground-penetrating radar and other remote sensing techniques have detected what appear to be additional void spaces within the pyramid's mass, suggesting chambers yet to be explored. Some of these spaces seem to be connected by passages or aligned in ways that might not be accidental. The possibility of a complex interior architecture raises fascinating questions. Most modern visitors think of the Pyramid of the Sun as essentially solid, a massive pile of stone and adobe brick with perhaps a few rooms or tunnels within it. But what if it is actually more complicated than that? What if the pyramid contains a network of chambers, each serving specific purposes, connected by passages, organized according to a plan that encoded information about astronomy, geometry, ritual, and perhaps technology? Such a structure would not be merely a platform for a temple or a symbolic mountain. It would be a machine of sorts, a three-dimensional diagram, a physical embodiment of knowledge and purpose. This conception of the pyramid as something more than a simple monument aligns with certain strands of thought in Mesoamerican studies. There is increasing recognition that ancient Mesoamerican structures often served multiple purposes simultaneously, that they were not just temples or palaces, but complex constructions that integrated practical, ceremonial, astronomical, and symbolic functions in ways that resist simple categorization. A Maya pyramid might be simultaneously a tomb, an astronomical observatory, a ceremonial platform, a political statement, and an architectural diagram of cosmological principles. The different functions were not separate, but rather aspects of a unified whole, each reinforcing and illuminating the others. If we apply this framework to the Pyramid of the Sun, the mica becomes one element in a larger system, perhaps a necessary component for something the pyramid was designed to do or be. The challenge is that we lack the cultural knowledge that would allow us to understand that system completely. We can measure and analyze the physical components, the mica, the stones, the alignments, the internal architecture, but we cannot fully reconstruct the conceptual framework within which these components made sense and worked together. It is like finding a complex machine but lacking the instruction manual or even the cultural context that would tell us what the machine was supposed to accomplish. Nevertheless, the search for understanding continues. Modern archaeological techniques constantly improve, offering new ways to examine ancient structures without destroying them. Three-dimensional scanning, chemical analysis, remote sensing, computer modeling, all of these tools are being applied to Teotihuacan, slowly building a more complete picture of what the city was and how it functioned. Each new discovery, each refinement in our understanding brings us closer to grasping what the builders of the Pyramid of the Sun were attempting. The mica, meanwhile, remains where it was placed so long ago, hidden in darkness, insulating or isolating or enabling something we can only guess at. It is patient, this mineral, stable across centuries, waiting for the questions that will finally unlock its purpose. And perhaps, with time and continued investigation, we will ask the right questions. Perhaps we will develop the frameworks and perspectives necessary to understand what Teotihuacan's builders knew about mica, why they valued it so highly, what they were doing with it in the heart of their greatest pyramid. Until then, it remains one of archaeology's most compelling mysteries, a puzzle piece that does not quite fit into the picture we have assembled, suggesting that the picture itself might be incomplete or misconceived in ways we have not yet realized. To understand the possible purposes of the mica, we must consider the ritual and ceremonial life of Teotihuacan. For even if the mica served some practical or technological function, that function would have been embedded within a larger context of religious belief and ritual practice. In Mesoamerican cultures, the distinction between the practical and the sacred, between technology and ritual, was not as clear as it is in modern Western thought. All activities, from farming to construction to war, were infused with religious significance. The cosmos was alive, filled with forces and beings that required proper relationship and propitiation. Human actions affected the balance of cosmic forces, and conversely, cosmic forces influenced human affairs. At Teotihuacan, religious practice centered on a pantheon of deities whose identities and relationships remain only partially understood. We can identify certain figures in the city's art and iconography. The storm god, often depicted with goggles and fangs, associated with rain and fertility. The feathered serpent, known to later Mesoamerican cultures as Quetzalcoatl. associated with wind, learning, and perhaps the planet Venus. The Great Goddess, a figure unique to Teotihuacan, associated with water, fertility, and the underworld. These deities and others formed a complex system of cosmic forces that the priests and people of Teotihuacan sought to understand and influence through ritual.
The pyramids were central to this ritual life. They were not merely symbolic mountains, but actual mountains, recreated by human effort. Sacred spaces where the boundaries between human and divine, between earth and sky, became permeable. Climbing a pyramid's steps was a journey between worlds, an ascent that transformed the pilgrim, preparing them for encounter with sacred power. At the pyramid's summit, in shrines that have not survived, but which we can infer from other evidence, priests conducted ceremonies that maintained the cosmos's proper functioning, that ensured the sun would rise, the rain would fall, the crops would grow, the city would prosper. But rituals were not performed only at pyramid summits. The interiors of these structures, the hidden chambers and sealed passages, were also sacred spaces, perhaps even more sacred for being concealed, protected from profane view. In Mesoamerican thought, caves were particularly sacred, seen as entrances to the underworld, places where the forces of death and rebirth were particularly strong. The cave beneath the Pyramid of the Sun would have been recognized as such a sacred place, and the pyramid built over and around it would have been designed to harness and focus the power associated with that cave. In this context, the mica's presence becomes more comprehensible, even if its specific function remains unclear. Precious materials were often used in Mesoamerican ritual, not for display, but for their inherent power, or their ability to facilitate communication with divine forces. Jade, for instance, was placed in the mouths of dead rulers, a ritual that had nothing to do with displaying wealth and everything to do with ensuring proper passage to the afterlife. If mica was understood to possess certain properties, perhaps the ability to capture light, or to create barriers, or to interact with other materials in meaningful ways, then its use in hidden chambers within a sacred pyramid would make perfect sense within Mesoamerican logic. The reflective quality of mica deserves particular attention. Mica sheets, when fresh and properly prepared, are highly reflective, catching and throwing back light in ways that can be quite striking. In a culture that revered the sun and that understood light as sacred, as divine in itself, a material that could capture and manipulate light would be highly valued. Perhaps the mica chambers, when used in ancient rituals, were illuminated by torches or other light sources, and the mica created effects that were seen as manifestations of divine presence or power. The glittering, shimmering quality of light reflecting from mica surfaces might have been interpreted as communication from the gods or as evidence that the ritual space was filled with sacred energy. But the mica at Teotihuacan was buried, hidden from view. If its reflective properties were valued, why hide it? Perhaps the answer lies in understanding that the power of sacred materials did not depend on being seen. The jade in a dead ruler's mouth was not seen by anyone after the tomb was sealed, but it was there, doing its work, facilitating the deceased's journey. Similarly, the mica within the pyramid might have been understood to be active even when hidden, its properties working to maintain certain conditions or to facilitate certain processes that were essential to the pyramid's function as a sacred structure. Another possibility is that the mica was involved in rituals that took place within the pyramid's hidden chambers, rituals that were performed by priests or other specialists far from public view. Mesoamerican religion had many layers, from the public ceremonies performed on pyramid summits before thousands of witnesses, to the secret rituals conducted in hidden places by initiated priests. The most powerful rituals, the ones that dealt with the deepest forces of the cosmos, might well have been performed in sealed chambers, in darkness broken only by controlled sources of light, in spaces prepared with special materials like mica that enhanced or enabled the ritual's effectiveness.
Water's role in these rituals must also be considered. Water was profoundly sacred to Mesoamerican peoples, associated with life, fertility, purification, and the underworld. The presence of water channels near or through mica-containing chambers might indicate that water was used in rituals performed in those spaces. Perhaps water was poured over mica surfaces as part of ceremonies, creating visual or acoustic effects that were interpreted as significant. Perhaps the combination of water and mica in specific configurations produced phenomena that priests understood as communications from the divine, or as evidence that the ritual space was filled with sacred energy. But the mica at Teotihuacan was buried, hidden from view. If its reflective properties were valued, why hide it? Perhaps the answer lies in understanding that the power of sacred materials did not depend on being seen. The jade in a dead ruler's mouth was not seen by anyone after the tomb was sealed, but it was there, doing its work, facilitating the deceased's journey. Similarly, the mica within the pyramid might have been understood to be active even when hidden, its properties working to maintain certain conditions or to facilitate certain processes that were essential to the pyramid's function as a sacred structure. Another possibility is that the mica was involved in rituals that took place within the pyramid's hidden chambers, rituals that were performed by priests or other specialists far from public view. Mesoamerican religion had many layers, from the public ceremonies performed on pyramid summits before thousands of witnesses to the secret rituals conducted in hidden places by initiated priests. The most powerful rituals, the ones that dealt with the deepest forces of the cosmos, might well have been performed in sealed chambers, in darkness broken only by controlled sources of light, in spaces prepared with special materials like mica that enhanced or enabled the ritual's effectiveness. Water's role in these rituals must also be considered. Water was profoundly sacred to Mesoamerican peoples, associated with life, fertility, purification, and the underworld. The presence of water channels near or through mica-containing chambers might indicate that water was used in rituals performed in those spaces. Perhaps water was poured over mica surfaces as part of ceremonies, creating visual or acoustic effects that were interpreted as significant. Perhaps the combination of water and mica in specific configurations produced phenomena that priests understood as communications from the divine, or as evidence that the ritual space was filled with sacred energy. But the mica at Teotihuacan was buried, hidden from view. If its reflective properties were valued, why hide it? Perhaps the answer lies in understanding that the power of sacred materials did not depend on being seen. The jade in a dead ruler's mouth was not seen by anyone after the tomb was sealed, but it was there, doing its work, facilitating the deceased's journey. Similarly, the mica within the pyramid might have been understood to be active even when hidden, its properties working to maintain certain conditions or to facilitate certain processes that were essential to the pyramid's function as a sacred structure.
These questions take us deep into the experiential world of ancient ritual, trying to imagine what it might have been like to participate in ceremonies conducted within the pyramid's hidden chambers. Imagine being a priest or initiate, descending into the pyramid's interior, entering spaces lit by flickering torchlight, where water trickled through channels, where stone walls amplified every sound, where the air felt heavy with significance. Imagine conducting rituals in chambers floored with mica, perhaps watching as water poured over the mica created shimmering patterns of light, perhaps listening as sounds echoed in ways that seemed to carry messages or meaning. In such an environment, the mica would not be just material, but part of a larger sensory and spiritual experience, an element in a carefully orchestrated encounter with the sacred. The challenge in reconstructing these ritual uses is that we lack the cultural knowledge that would make them fully comprehensible. We can identify some of the elements, the materials, the architecture, the iconography, but we cannot fully reconstruct the beliefs, the myths, the trained perceptions that would have given these elements their full meaning.
It is like trying to understand a symphony by examining the instruments without being able to hear the music, or like trying to comprehend a poem in a language where you know some of the words, but not the grammar or the cultural associations that give those words their full resonance. Nevertheless, the evidence allows us to say certain things with confidence. The mica was important enough to justify enormous effort in obtaining it. It was deliberately placed within the pyramid structure according to some plan or principle. It was associated with water channels and with chambers that seemed to have been used for ritual purposes. It was hidden from view, suggesting that its value was not aesthetic or public, but rather functional in some way that did not require visibility. All of this points to sophisticated intentionality, to a system of knowledge and practice that we have not fully penetrated, but whose existence we can infer from what remains. The Pyramid of the Sun, understood in this way, becomes more than a monument. It becomes a tool, an instrument, a carefully constructed environment designed to facilitate certain practices and experiences. The mica is one component of this larger system, perhaps necessary for the system to function properly, perhaps enhancing or enabling effects that were central to Teotihuacan's religious life. As we continue to investigate, to analyze, to think carefully about what we find, we may gradually develop better understanding of what that system was and how it worked. We may never understand it completely. The cultural gap is too vast, too much knowledge has been lost, but we can approach it. We can develop increasingly sophisticated interpretations that do justice to the complexity and achievement represented by this extraordinary structure. The technological hypothesis regarding the mica in the Pyramid of the Sun is controversial, but it cannot be dismissed without serious consideration. The hypothesis, in its strongest form, suggests that the mica was part of a sophisticated technological system that the builders of Teotihuacan developed and used for purposes we can only partially understand. This hypothesis makes many conventional archaeologists uncomfortable because it seems to attribute capabilities to an ancient culture that do not fit standard models of technological development. Yet the evidence, the mica itself, its quantity, its deliberate placement, its source from thousands of miles away, demands explanation, and conventional explanations feel incomplete. Let us consider what a technological system might have looked like in ancient Teotihuacan, freed from the assumption that technology must resemble what we are familiar with from modern industrial civilization. Technology, at its most basic, is the application of knowledge to achieve practical purposes, the use of tools and techniques to manipulate the natural world in useful ways. By this definition, ancient Teotihuacan was certainly technological. The city's construction required sophisticated engineering knowledge, understanding of materials and structures, ability to organize and direct large labor forces. The city's agricultural systems, its water management, its craft production, all of these involved technological knowledge and skill. But could this technology have extended into realms we do not normally associate with ancient cultures? Could Teotihuacan's builders have understood principles of energy manipulation, of electrical phenomena, of material properties in ways that allowed them to create systems we would not recognize as technological because they do not resemble our own technologies? This is where the technological hypothesis becomes speculative but also intriguing. The properties of mica, its electrical insulation, its thermal resistance, its piezoelectric characteristics are well established by modern science. What is speculative is whether ancient builders understood any of these properties, and if they did, what use they made of them. Consider the electrical properties first. Mica is an excellent electrical insulator, used in modern applications precisely because it prevents the flow of electric current. In an ancient context, where we have no evidence of electrical generation or circuits in the modern sense, what possible use could electrical insulation serve? One possibility is that the insulation was not about preventing electric flow in wires or circuits, but rather about containing or directing naturally occurring electrical phenomena. lightning, static electricity, even the minute electrical charges generated by certain geological processes, all of these exist in nature and would have been observable by ancient peoples. Static electricity, in particular, is easily observable and was certainly known to ancient cultures. The Greeks knew about it, noting that amber, electron in Greek, would attract light materials when rubbed. Could Mesoamericans have made similar observations? Could they have experimented with ways to generate, contain, or direct static charges? If so, mica's insulating properties would be valuable for creating spaces or surfaces where charges could accumulate or be directed. This might sound far-fetched, but consider that it requires no advanced technology, only careful observation and experimentation with available materials.
The thermal properties of mica are perhaps easier to imagine ancient peoples understanding and using. Mica's ability to withstand high temperatures while not conducting heat makes it valuable in any context involving fire or high heat. In a ritual context, as discussed earlier, this might have allowed for the creation of specific thermal environments within chambers, maintaining certain temperatures for extended periods, or protecting certain materials or spaces from heat. But there might also have been more practical applications. If Teotihuacan's craftspeople were working with materials that required precise temperature control, certain types of ceramic firing, for instance, or the processing of minerals, mica could have been used to create kilns or ovens with better temperature regulation than stone alone would provide. The piezoelectric properties of mica enter into even more speculative territory. Piezoelectricity, the generation of electrical charge in response to mechanical stress, is not something we normally associate with ancient technology. However, the effect is real and observable without modern instruments if you know what to look for. Certain crystals, when squeezed or struck, produce small sparks or electrical discharges. If ancient experimenters were manipulating mica or combining it with other piezoelectric materials like quartz, they might have observed unusual phenomena, sparks, shocks, odd sounds, that they found significant or useful. Now, even if we grant that Teotihuacan's builders might have understood some of these properties, what were they using them for? Here, we must acknowledge that we are largely in the realm of speculation, trying to imagine possibilities that the evidence does not definitively support or refute. One intriguing possibility is that the mica was part of systems related to altered states of consciousness. Many ancient ritual practices involved techniques for inducing trance states, visions, or other non-ordinary experiences. Mesoamerican peoples used various methods to achieve such states: fasting, bloodletting, the use of psychoactive plants, sensory deprivation or overload, rhythmic movement and sound. Could the mica have contributed to creating environments that facilitated altered states, perhaps through its effects on light, creating unusual visual phenomena in enclosed chambers, perhaps through acoustic properties, affecting how sound behaved in ritual spaces, perhaps through more subtle effects, electromagnetic fields, ionization of air, other phenomena that we are only beginning to understand might affect human consciousness in various ways. This is admittedly highly speculative, but it points toward possible connections between the physical properties of mica and the ritual purposes the pyramids served. Another possibility, equally speculative but grounded in observable phenomena, involves the pyramids' interaction with natural energies. Ancient sacred sites around the world are often located at places that show unusual geomagnetic or other properties. Sites where the Earth's magnetic field varies, where underground water flows, where geological features create specific environmental conditions. Some researchers have proposed that ancient builders were sensitive to these features and deliberately chose locations and designed structures to interact with them. The Pyramid of the Sun sits over a cave and is built with materials from diverse sources, including the mica, all arranged according to precise geometric and astronomical principles. Could this arrangement have been designed to interact with natural energies in ways that served ritual or other purposes? This line of thinking sometimes gets labeled as pseudo-archaeology or dismissed as New Age speculation. And indeed, many claims made along these lines are not well supported by evidence. However, the existence of poorly supported fringe theories should not prevent us from seriously examining whether ancient builders might have understood aspects of the natural world that we are only now beginning to investigate scientifically. Research into how electromagnetic fields affect human biology, how certain geological features create measurable variations in local environment, how structures can concentrate or modify natural forces. All of this is legitimate science, even if it is not yet fully understood. If modern science is discovering these phenomena, is it not possible that ancient peoples, through empirical observation and experimentation, discovered some of them as well, even if they explained and used them in terms very different from our own? The challenge is to remain open to possibilities, while maintaining critical standards of evidence and reasoning. The mica is real. Its properties are well established. Its presence in the pyramid required enormous effort and deliberate intent. These are facts. What those facts mean, what they tell us about what Teotihuacan's builders knew and what they were trying to accomplish, remains more uncertain. We can propose hypotheses, we can test them where possible, we can use what we learn to refine our understanding, but we must also acknowledge the limits of our knowledge, the vastness of what has been lost, the possibility that we are missing crucial pieces of the puzzle. Perhaps the most honest position is one of learned ignorance. We know enough to recognize that something significant is going on with the mica, but we do not know enough to explain it fully. This position keeps us humble, while also keeping us curious, maintaining the space for continued investigation and thought. It acknowledges both the genuine mysteries that remain and the need for serious, rigorous inquiry rather than easy answers or dismissive skepticism. The Pyramid of the Sun and its mica challenge us to this kind of thinking, to holding questions open, to entertaining possibilities while demanding evidence, to recognizing that the ancient world might still have things to teach us if we approach it with appropriate combination of respect, skepticism, and imagination.
The Avenue of the Dead stretches before us, this great ceremonial way that forms the spine of Teotihuacan's sacred geography. Locking its length, we are following in the footsteps of countless pilgrims, priests, and rulers who processed along this route on occasions whose significance we can only partly reconstruct. The avenue is not simply a road or a street in the conventional sense. It is a carefully constructed ritual landscape, every element of which was designed to create specific effects and convey specific meanings. The avenue's alignment, like that of the Pyramid of the Sun, deviates from true north, oriented instead 15.5 degrees east of north. This is not accidental. The orientation relates to astronomical observations, specifically to the point on the horizon where certain celestial bodies rise or set at certain times of year. Some researchers have noted that the avenue's alignment points toward the setting of the Pleiades, a star cluster that held great significance for many Mesoamerican cultures associated with agriculture, timekeeping, and cosmic order. Others have proposed that the alignment relates to the sun's position at key dates in the agricultural or ceremonial calendar. What seems clear is that the orientation was deliberate and meaningful, part of a larger system that integrated the city's architecture with cosmic observations and cycles. The width of the avenue, 40 meters, allowed for grand processions and large gatherings. We can imagine ceremonies in which thousands of people filled the avenue, moving in orchestrated patterns, their movements synchronized to music and ritual purposes. The avenue's surface was originally plastered and smooth, creating a grand stage for these performances. The structures lining the avenue would have been brightly painted, decorated with murals and sculptures, creating a visual environment of extraordinary richness and power. The overall effect must have been overwhelming, a complete sensory experience designed to transport participants out of ordinary consciousness into sacred space and time. At regular intervals along the avenue, smaller pyramid platforms rise, creating a rhythm to the journey, marking stages or stations in the processional route. Each of these platforms likely had specific ritual significance, dedicated to particular deities or used for particular ceremonies. The relationship between these platforms and the major pyramids follows mathematical patterns, intervals, and proportions that suggest the entire avenue was conceived as a single vast instrument designed to work as a complete system. Some researchers have proposed that the spacing of structures along the avenue creates sightlines to significant astronomical events, that from certain positions, standing on certain platforms at certain times of year, one could observe the sun, moon, or stars rising or setting in significant positions relative to the buildings. While such claims remain debated, they point to the sophistication with which Teotihuacan's builders integrated multiple dimensions of meaning, ceremonial, astronomical, geometric, symbolic, into a single architectural vision. The name Avenue of the Dead comes from the Aztecs, who, finding Teotihuacan in ruins centuries after it was abandoned, believed the structures lining the avenue were tombs. This interpretation, though incorrect, the structures were temples and palaces, not tombs, nevertheless captures something important about the character of the avenue. There is something about this place that speaks of death and transformation, of passage from one state to another, of movement through stages of existence towards some ultimate destination. The avenue leads from the southern entrance of the city northward to the Pyramid of the Moon, a journey that can be understood as a pilgrimage, a ritual death and rebirth, a movement from the profane world into the realm of the sacred. At the southern end of the avenue complex stands the Ciudadla, a vast sunken courtyard surrounded by platforms and dominated by the Temple of Quetzalcoatl. This structure is extraordinary, its facade decorated with hundreds of carved serpent heads and other iconographic elements, creating one of the most elaborate and spectacular architectural displays at Teotihuacan. The Temple of Quetzalcoatl has been extensively excavated, revealing not only its stunning architecture, but also evidence of mass human sacrifice. Dozens of individuals were buried in the temple's foundations, apparently sacrificed as part of dedication ceremonies. This discovery has led to intense scholarly debate about the nature of Teotihuacan's government and religion, about how power was exercised and legitimized, about the role of violence and sacrifice in maintaining cosmic and social order. The relationship between the Temple of Quetzalcoatl and the pyramids of the Sun and Moon is complex and multi-layered. Some scholars see them as representing different aspects of Teotihuacan's religious system, different deities or cosmic forces that needed to be kept in balance. Others propose that they represent different periods in the city's development, that the emphasis on different structures shifted over time as Teotihuacan's religious and political systems evolved. The layout of the three major structures forms a triangle that some researchers believe encodes mathematical and astronomical information, though, as always, such claims are controversial and debated. What seems clear is that Teotihuacan's builders thought in terms of large-scale patterns and relationships, that they conceived of the city as a whole, not as a collection of individual buildings, but as an integrated system where each element related to all the others in meaningful ways. The Avenue of the Dead is the most obvious manifestation of this integrated vision, but it extends throughout the city. Residential compounds, craft workshops, administrative buildings, all were laid out according to the same basic grid, all oriented to the same cosmic directions, all part of the same larger pattern. Living in Teotihuacan meant living within this cosmologically ordered space, where every street and every building reinforced the same basic worldview, the same understanding of how human society related to cosmic order.
The precision required to execute this vision across the entire extent of the city, more than 20 square kilometers at its peak, is staggering. It required surveying techniques capable of maintaining accurate alignments across long distances.
It required administrative systems capable of coordinating construction across decades or centuries, ensuring that later additions conformed to earlier plans. It required shared understanding of the guiding principles, some way of transmitting the knowledge necessary to maintain the city's overall coherence as it grew and changed. All of this speaks to a level of social and intellectual organization that we associate with advanced civilizations, with societies that have developed sophisticated ways of encoding, storing, and transmitting complex information. The alignment of the avenue and the positioning of the major structures create what some researchers call an astronomical observatory writ large, an entire cityscape designed to function as an instrument for observing and marking celestial events. From certain vantage points within the city, sight lines between buildings frame specific points on the horizon where the sun, moon, or stars rise or set at significant times. The shadows cast by structures at certain hours create specific patterns that might have been used to mark time or to determine appropriate moments for ritual actions. The entire city becomes a kind of calendar, a three-dimensional diagram of cosmic cycles made concrete in stone and aligned with the actual movements of celestial bodies. If we accept this interpretation, and the evidence for it is substantial though not uncontroversial, then the Pyramid of the Sun's mica chambers take on additional significance. The pyramid is not just one building among many, but a crucial node in this larger astronomical and ritual system. Its orientation, its proportions, its internal architecture, including the mica chambers, all contribute to its function within the larger whole. Perhaps the mica chambers were positioned to align with specific sightlines or to mark specific locations within the pyramid's mass that had astronomical significance. Perhaps they were designed to be illuminated by sunlight or starlight, entering through carefully positioned openings at specific times. The possibilities multiply when we think of the pyramid not as a standalone structure, but as part of an integrated system. Water, as mentioned earlier, plays a crucial role in Teotihuacan's design. The city's name in Nahuatl, the language of the Aztecs, not the original builders, means the place where the gods were born, or possibly the place where one becomes a god, and water imagery pervades Teotihuacan's iconography. The great goddess, a central figure in Teotihuacan's pantheon, is associated with water, with springs and streams, with the life-giving and purifying properties of water. Throughout the city, water channels were carefully constructed to direct the flow of water in specific patterns, creating fountains and pools in certain plazas, directing water around or through certain structures. Some of these water systems seem to serve practical purposes, drainage, water supply, while others seem more symbolic or ritualistic. The presence of water channels near and possibly through the Pyramid of the Sun's mica chambers suggests that water was part of whatever the pyramid was designed to do. In Mesoamerican cosmology, water was not just a physical substance, but a sacred force associated with fertility, with life and death, with passage between worlds. Ritual purification with water was common, as was the use of water in divination and other ceremonial practices. If the pyramid's mica chambers were sites of important rituals, the presence of water would make perfect sense, even if the specific nature of those rituals remains unclear. Some researchers have proposed that Teotihuacan's water systems might have served acoustic purposes, that flowing water in channels beneath or around structures might have created sounds that were incorporated into ritual experiences. The sound of flowing water, modified by the architecture through which it passed, might have created the impression of voices or communication from the underworld. Combined with the visual effects created by mica reflecting light, with the strange acoustics of enclosed chambers, with the psychological effects of ritual performance in such an environment, the overall experience might have been profoundly transformative for participants. This is, admittedly, speculative reconstruction, but it is grounded in what we know about the physical features of the site and about the importance of multi-sensory experience in ancient ritual. Walking the Avenue of the Dead today, the city is silent except for the wind and the conversations of tourists. The brilliant colors have faded, the plaster has weathered away, the structures stand as skeletons of what they once were. Yet even in ruins, the avenue retains its power. The scale, the precision, the clear evidence of sophisticated planning and execution, all of this remains visible and impressive. And knowing now what lies hidden within the Pyramid of the Sun, knowing about the mica and the mysteries it represents, we walk the avenue with different eyes, seeing not just ruins but questions, not just ancient stones but evidence of knowledge and capability that we are still working to understand. The Avenue of the Dead leads us not just through space, but through time, connecting us across centuries to the minds and hands that built this extraordinary place, inviting us to keep exploring, keep questioning, keep trying to bridge the gap between their world and ours. The question of who built Teotihuacan is one of the great unsolved mysteries of Mesoamerican archaeology. Unlike the Maya, who left extensive written records, or the Aztecs, whose history was documented both in their own texts and by Spanish conquistadors, the builders of Teotihuacan remain anonymous. We do not know what they called themselves. We do not know their language with certainty, though most scholars assume it was an early form of Nahuatl, or possibly a language called Totonacan. We do not know the names of their rulers or the details of their political system. We don't even know why they abandoned the city around 650 CE, leaving it to fall into ruins centuries before the Aztecs discovered it and gave it the name by which we know it today. What we do know comes from archaeology, from the careful excavation and analysis of what they left behind. We know that Teotihuacan was founded around 100 CE and grew rapidly over the following centuries to become the largest city in the pre-Columbian Americas. At its peak, around 400 to 500 CE, the city covered more than 20 square kilometers and housed a population estimated to be between 100,000 and 200,000 people, making it one of the largest cities in the world at that time, larger than contemporary Rome. We know that the city was carefully planned from its early stages, that the major structures and the basic street grid were established early and then maintained over centuries of growth and development.
We know that Teotihuacan was an ethnically diverse, a cosmopolitan center that attracted people from across Mesoamerica. Archaeological evidence shows distinct neighborhoods where people from different regions lived, maintaining some of their cultural traditions while participating in the larger life of the city. There was Zapotec compounds where people from Oaxaca lived, Maya compounds where people from the tropical lowlands to the south maintained their presence, and probably porters for people from other regions as well. This diversity suggests that Teotihuacan was not simply a city-state controlling a limited territory, but rather a place of regional or even pan-Mesoamerican significance, a center that drew people and resources from vast distances. We know that Teotihuacan was a major economic power, controlling important obsidian sources and producing obsidian tools and weapons that were traded throughout Mesoamerica. The city's craft specialists produced ceramics, textiles, and other goods that have been found at sites hundreds of miles away. Teotihuacan's economic reach, combined with its cultural influence, made it one of the dominant forces in Mesoamerican civilization during its time. Other cities showed Teotihuacan influence in their architecture, their art styles, their iconography, suggesting that Teotihuacan's power was not purely economic, but also cultural and perhaps political or military. But despite all this, the fundamental question remains: who were these people? What motivated them to build on such a grand scale? What beliefs and aspirations drove them to quarry countless tons of stone, to transport mica from thousands of miles away, to create a city whose sophistication and ambition continue to astonish us today? The lack of written records means we must rely on inference and interpretation, reading meaning from the structures and artifacts they left behind, always aware that we might be missing crucial context or misunderstanding what we see.
The level of knowledge required to build Teotihuacan suggests a society with sophisticated educational or training systems, ways of transmitting technical knowledge from generation to generation. The mathematical understanding required for the city's layout, the astronomical knowledge needed for the precise alignments, the engineering expertise necessary for pyramid construction, all of this knowledge had to be learned, practiced, and passed on. This implies schools or apprenticeship systems, perhaps priestly colleges where young people learned astronomy and mathematics, workshops where craftsmen trained the next generation, oral traditions that encoded and transmitted crucial information. The organization of labor on the scale required for Teotihuacan's construction implies strong central authority, systems for mobilizing and coordinating the work of thousands or tens of thousands of people. This might have been theocratic, with religious authorities directing construction as a form of service to the gods. It might have been more conventionally political, with rulers using construction projects to demonstrate their power and legitimize their authority. It might have combined both elements, as religious and political power were often intertwined in ancient societies. What is clear is that someone had the authority to command labor on a massive scale and the administrative capability to organize and direct that labor effectively over long periods. The Mica mystery becomes even more intriguing when we consider the knowledge systems that must have existed at Teotihuacan. Someone had to know that mica existed in Brazil, thousands of miles away. Someone had to organize the logistics of obtaining it. Someone had to understand why it was worth the effort. This implies not just local knowledge, but a sophisticated understanding of Mesoamerican geography, of trade routes and resources across vast distances. It implies communication networks capable of transmitting complex information across space. It implies perhaps specialists in mineralogy or material properties who understood different minerals and their uses. The possibility that Teotihuacan possessed what we might call proto-scientific knowledge, systematic understanding of natural phenomena based on observation and experimentation, is not as far-fetched as it might initially seem. Many ancient cultures developed impressive bodies of empirical knowledge. Chinese civilization, for instance, developed sophisticated understanding of medicine, chemistry, and physics through centuries of systematic observation and experimentation, creating technologies like gunpowder, paper, and the compass long before they appeared in Europe. Islamic civilization during its golden age made remarkable advances in mathematics, astronomy, optics, and other sciences. These achievements remind us that scientific knowledge does not develop in only one way or follow a single path, that different cultures at different times have developed sophisticated understanding of the natural world through various methodological approaches.
Could Teotihuacan have developed similar systematic knowledge? The evidence of astronomical precision, geometric sophistication, and material science suggested by the mica certainly allows for this possibility. The question is whether this knowledge was recorded in some way that allowed it to accumulate and develop over generations, or whether it was more limited, held by small groups of specialists and transmitted only orally or through practical apprenticeship. The lack of a clear writing system at Teotihuacan complicates this question. While the city had symbolic systems, the iconography found in murals and on ceramics, we have not identified anything equivalent to the Mayas' extensive written texts or even the Aztecs' pictorial codices. Yet the absence of writing in a form we recognize does not mean information was not encoded and transmitted. Many complex societies have functioned without writing, using oral traditions, visual mnemonics, and practical demonstration to maintain and transmit knowledge. The complexity of what was achieved at Teotihuacan, the integrated astronomical, geometric, and architectural sophistication of the city, suggests that effective methods of encoding and transmitting knowledge existed, even if we have not fully identified or understood them.
The city itself might be seen as a kind of text, its layout and structures encoding information that could be read by those trained to understand it. The relationships between buildings, the proportions of pyramids, the alignments to celestial events, all of this might have served as a kind of three-dimensional diagram, a physical encoding of mathematical and astronomical knowledge that could be passed on by training people to observe and understand the structures themselves. In this context, the mica chambers take on additional significance. If the pyramid encoded knowledge, if its structure was designed to teach as well as to function, then the hidden mica chambers might have been part of that teaching, accessible to initiates who were being trained in certain mysteries. The mica might have been demonstrated to students, its properties explained or shown, its uses in ritual or other applications made clear. The secrecy surrounding these chambers, the fact that they were hidden from general view, would fit with the pattern found in many ancient societies where certain knowledge was reserved for initiates, transmitted only to those who had undergone proper training and preparation. This brings us to the question of what happened to Teotihuacan's knowledge when the city was abandoned. Around 650 CE, for reasons that remain debated, Teotihuacan's population declined dramatically. The city was not conquered by an outside force, at least not in any conventional sense. Instead, it seems to have experienced internal collapse, possibly involving burning of major structures, possibly involving rebellion or civil strife. Over the course of several generations, the city emptied out, its inhabitants dispersing to other centers or founding new communities. By the time the Aztecs discovered it centuries later, Teotihuacan was a mysterious ruin, its builders forgotten, its purposes unclear. What happened to the knowledge that built Teotihuacan? Some of it survived, transmitted to successor cultures. The architectural styles and iconographic elements that characterize Teotihuacan appear in modified forms at other later sites across Mesoamerica. The Aztecs incorporated Teotihuacan into their mythology, treating it as a holy place associated with the creation of the current world. But much was clearly lost. The specific astronomical knowledge, the mathematical principles, the understanding of materials like mica, these seem not to have been transmitted to later cultures, or if they were transmitted, not in forms that we can recognize. The dispersal of Teotihuacan's population might have broken the lines of transmission, scattered the specialists whose knowledge had been crucial to the city's achievements. Or perhaps the knowledge was so closely held, so restricted to small groups of initiates, that when those groups dispersed or died out, the knowledge died with them. The loss of knowledge is a recurring tragedy in human history. The Library of Alexandria burned, taking with it countless ancient texts. The collapse of Roman civilization led to the loss of engineering techniques that would not be rediscovered for centuries. The Spanish conquest of the Americas resulted in the deliberate destruction of countless indigenous books and the suppression of indigenous knowledge systems, a cultural catastrophe whose effects are still felt today. Against this backdrop of loss, the survival of structures like the Pyramid of the Sun becomes even more precious. The knowledge of how to build it may be lost, the understanding of its mica chambers may have vanished, but the structure itself remains, a physical puzzle that challenges us to reconstruct what has been forgotten, to rediscover what was once known. Let us return to the mica itself, to the physical reality of these sheets of mineral buried within the pyramid, and consider what modern science can tell us about their potential functions and effects. We have discussed various possibilities, ritual uses, technological applications, symbolic meanings, but let us now examine more specifically what mica does and might do in the context of the pyramid's architecture and environment. Mica's electrical insulating properties are among its most distinctive characteristics. In modern applications, mica is used extensively in electrical equipment, from capacitors to transformers to various types of switches and connectors, precisely because it prevents electrical current from flowing while remaining mechanically stable across a wide range of temperatures. The dielectric strength of muscovite mica, the type found at Teotihuacan, is approximately 20 kilovolts per millimeter, meaning it can withstand extremely high electrical potential differences without breaking down and allowing current to flow.
In ancient Teotihuacan, where we have no evidence of electrical generation or circuits in the modern sense, what could such insulating properties have been used for? One possibility involves naturally occurring electrical phenomena. The Earth's atmosphere and surface are constantly experiencing electrical activity, not just obvious events like lightning, but also more subtle phenomena such as the accumulation of static charges on various surfaces, variations in the electric field near the ground associated with weather conditions, and electrical currents that flow through the ground itself associated with geological processes. Some researchers have proposed that ancient sacred sites were located at positions where geological features create unusual electrical or electromagnetic conditions. Fault lines, underground water streams, certain types of mineral deposits, all can affect local electrical and magnetic fields in measurable ways. Modern instruments can detect these variations, and some researchers have documented anomalies at ancient sacred sites, though the interpretation of such findings remains controversial. The question is whether ancient builders were sensitive to such phenomena, and whether they deliberately chose sites or designed structures to interact with them. If we entertain this possibility, and it is speculative, though grounded in observable physical phenomena, then mica's insulating properties could have served to contain or direct naturally occurring electrical effects. A chamber floored with mica would be electrically isolated from the ground beneath it, potentially allowing charges to accumulate on the mica surface or preventing charges from dissipating into the earth. Whether such effects would be strong enough to be noticeable and whether they would serve any useful purpose depends on specifics we do not know: the exact configuration of the mica chambers, the geological conditions beneath the pyramid, what else might have been present in these chambers when they were in use. The thermal properties of mica are perhaps easier to imagine ancient builders discovering and using. Mica's combination of high heat resistance and low thermal conductivity makes it an effective thermal barrier. If you place mica between a heat source and a space you want to protect from heat, the mica will allow little heat to pass through while itself remaining stable, even if the heat source is very hot. This property could be useful in various contexts. If rituals involving fire were performed in chambers within the pyramid, mica floors or walls could protect the surrounding structure from heat damage. If processes requiring controlled temperatures were being conducted, perhaps the preparation of certain substances, the treatment of materials, or ritual activities involving specific thermal conditions, mica could help maintain those temperatures by preventing heat from escaping or entering. There is also the question of what happens when mica is heated. Mica does not melt or degrade at temperatures that can be achieved with wood fires or other ancient heat sources, but it can release water that is bound within its crystalline structure. This water is not liquid water between the layers, but rather water molecules incorporated into the mineral's atomic structure. When heated to several hundred degrees Celsius, this bound water is released as steam, causing the mica to expand slightly. For people heating mica in ancient ritual contexts, this release of steam might have been interpreted as significant, perhaps as the material releasing spiritual essence or communicating with divine forces. The phenomenon would be reproducible and observable, potentially forming the basis for ritual practices centered on the heating of mica in ceremonial contexts. The piezoelectric properties of mica, as mentioned earlier, involve the generation of electrical charges in response to mechanical stress. When a piezoelectric crystal is compressed, bent, or otherwise deformed, positive and negative charges separate within its structure, creating a voltage difference between different parts of the crystal. Conversely, if you apply a voltage to a piezoelectric material, it will deform mechanically.
This reciprocal relationship between mechanical stress and electrical charge is exploited in numerous modern technologies, from quartz watches to ultrasonic transducers to high-precision positioning systems. Mica's piezoelectric effect is relatively weak compared to other minerals like quartz, but it exists and would be potentially observable under the right circumstances. If large sheets of mica were subjected to pressure or vibration, perhaps from people walking on them, perhaps from sound vibrations in enclosed chambers, perhaps from the weight of the pyramid itself creating stress in the mica layers, this might generate small electrical charges or create other subtle effects. Whether such effects would be noticeable without modern instruments is debatable, but we should not underestimate the perceptual abilities of people deeply familiar with materials and trained to observe subtle phenomena. There is another property of mica relevant to its presence in the pyramid: its interaction with water. While mica itself is hydrophobic, water does not stick to it well. Its layered structure can trap water molecules between the layers, and mica's electrical properties can be affected by moisture content. In humid conditions or when in contact with water, mica's electrical behavior changes in measurable ways. Given that water channels run near or through the mica chambers, this interaction between water and mica might have been deliberate and significant. Perhaps the combination was designed to create specific electrical conditions, or perhaps water was used to clean or prepare mica surfaces for ritual use, or perhaps the interaction of water and mica created phenomena that were interpreted as spiritually meaningful.
Modern researchers have attempted to investigate these possibilities using contemporary scientific instruments. Ground-penetrating radar surveys of the pyramid have mapped internal structures without requiring destructive excavation. Electromagnetic measurements have been taken in various locations to see if the mica creates detectable anomalies in the pyramid's electrical or magnetic signature. Thermal imaging has been used to examine how the structure responds to heating from the sun and whether internal features like the mica chambers show different thermal properties than surrounding material. The results of such studies have been mixed. Some researchers report detecting anomalies that they associate with the mica chambers, while others find nothing unusual beyond what would be expected from the known structure and materials. The challenge in interpreting such measurements is that we do not know what we are looking for. If the mica was part of some ancient system, we would need to understand how that system worked in order to design experiments that might detect its remnants or effects. It is like trying to understand a computer by measuring the electrical fields around it without knowing what computers are or what they do. You might detect various electromagnetic emissions and electrical currents, but without understanding the purpose and function of the device, these measurements would be difficult to interpret meaningfully. What we can say with confidence is that the mica is there, that it has specific physical and chemical properties that are well understood by modern science, and that these properties make mica useful in various modern applications. The inference that ancient builders might have understood at least some of these properties through whatever means and in whatever conceptual framework is reasonable, though not proven. The hypothesis that they used these properties for specific purposes, whether technological, ritual, or some combination, is plausible, though speculative. The challenge going forward is to develop ways of testing these hypotheses, of gathering evidence that might support or refute various interpretations, while remaining humble about the limits of our knowledge and open to the possibility that the truth might be stranger and more interesting than anything we have yet imagined. The Pyramid of the Sun continues to guard its secrets, but each new investigation, each new analytical technique, each new perspective brought to bear on the problem brings us potentially closer to understanding. The mica remains where it was placed so long ago, a clue waiting to be fully deciphered, a message from the past that we are still learning how to read. The relationship between the Pyramid of the Sun and the celestial realm deserves deeper exploration, for it is clear that the structure's design incorporates sophisticated astronomical knowledge, and that this celestial orientation was central to whatever purposes the pyramid served.
The pyramid is not merely aligned to the sun, despite its name. It is positioned and proportioned to relate to various celestial phenomena in ways that suggest deep understanding of both astronomy and the religious or philosophical significance of celestial cycles. The pyramid's primary astronomical alignment has been well documented. It faces the point on the western horizon where the sun sets on the days when it passes directly overhead at noon. This occurs twice a year in Teotihuacan's latitude, on approximately May 19th and July 25th in the modern calendar. These dates divide the year into 3 periods, and there is evidence that these periods held significance in Mesoamerican calendrical and agricultural systems. The ability to determine these dates with precision required systematic observation of the sun's position over years or decades, recording and analyzing the patterns, and then encoding that knowledge in the pyramid's orientation. This is not simple or obvious. It requires dedicated observer astronomers, systems for recording observations, and the mathematical ability to analyze patterns and predict future events based on past observations. But the pyramid's astronomical relationships extend beyond this primary solar alignment. Researchers have identified relationships between the pyramid and various stellar phenomena. The orientation of the Avenue of the Dead, and thus the angle at which the pyramid sits relative to the avenue, creates sightlines to the setting of the Pleiades and possibly other stellar clusters or constellations. The proportions of the pyramid, the relationships between its height, base dimensions, and the angles of its faces may encode mathematical relationships derived from astronomical observations, perhaps ratios related to the solar year, the lunar month, or the synodic periods of visible planets. The Pleiades were particularly significant to Mesoamerican peoples. Their heliacal rising, the first time they become visible in the eastern sky before sunrise after a period of being too close to the sun to be seen, marked important points in the agricultural and ceremonial calendar. The Pleiades' appearance coincided with the beginning of the dry season in central Mexico, signaling the time for certain agricultural activities and ceremonies. If Teotihuacan's orientation specifically incorporated Pleiades observations, this would connect the city's architecture to practical agricultural timing, while also linking it to broader cosmic cycles.
The concept of the pyramid as an astronomical instrument extends beyond simple alignments to the observation points. The pyramid's mass and geometry create specific shadow patterns at different times of day and year. These shadows, cast by the pyramid onto the surrounding plazas or onto other structures, would change in predictable ways as the sun moved through its annual cycle. Someone trained in astronomical observation could use these shadows to determine dates, to mark the passage of seasons, to know when specific ceremonies should be performed. The pyramid becomes, in effect, a giant sundial, but one that marks not just hours but seasons and years, encoding astronomical knowledge in its physical form. The interior architecture of the pyramid, with its chambers and passages, might also have served astronomical functions. In other ancient cultures, underground chambers or tunnels were sometimes used for astronomical observations. The absence of horizon clutter and the controlled environment of an enclosed space can actually facilitate certain types of observations. For instance, a vertical shaft or chamber could be used to observe when the sun is directly overhead at noon, a phenomenon that occurs only in tropical latitudes and that, as mentioned, was clearly important to Teotihuacan's astronomical system. The precise moment of zenith passage can be determined by watching for when sunlight coming down a vertical shaft illuminates a specific mark or surface. Could the mica chambers have been part of such an observational system? A chamber with a mica floor positioned beneath a shaft open to the sky might create striking visual effects when sunlight penetrated to the chamber at specific moments. The reflective mica would amplify the light, perhaps creating effects that were both practically useful for marking time and symbolically powerful for demonstrating cosmic connections. This is, admittedly, reconstruction based on possibility rather than direct evidence, but it aligns with what we know about the pyramid's astronomical sophistication and the deliberate placement of the mica.
The relationship between astronomical knowledge and religious power in ancient societies cannot be overstated. Those who could predict celestial events, eclipses, planetary conjunctions, the timing of solstices and equinoxes, possessed power that appeared almost magical to those who did not understand the underlying patterns. This knowledge allowed priest astronomers to demonstrate their connection to cosmic forces, to prove their ability to understand and even influence the workings of the universe. Agricultural societies dependent on seasonal cycles for their survival would naturally vest authority in those who could reliably predict when to plant and harvest, when rains would come, when the sun would reach its extremes. At Teotihuacan, this astronomical knowledge was literally built into the city's architecture. The pyramids, the avenue, the plazas, all served as a vast three-dimensional calendar and astronomical instrument visible to everyone, demonstrating constantly the connection between human society and cosmic order. Living in Teotihuacan meant living within this cosmically ordered space, where the buildings themselves taught and reinforced astronomical knowledge, where the proper times for activities were marked by shadows and alignments rather than by written calendars. This integration of architecture, astronomy, and social organization represents a sophisticated approach to organizing human life in accordance with natural and cosmic cycles. The mica in this context becomes more than just an anomalous material. It becomes a component in a larger system designed to work with light, to mark time, to connect earth and sky, human and cosmic. Whether its function was primarily observational, helping astronomer priests make precise measurements, or primarily symbolic, creating visual effects that demonstrated cosmic connections, or some combination of both, it was part of Teotihuacan's larger project of creating a city that functioned as an interface between human and cosmic realms. This astronomical sophistication raises profound questions about the intellectual achievements of ancient Mesoamerican civilizations, the precision of observations, the mathematical knowledge required to predict celestial events, the engineering skill needed to encode this knowledge in architecture. All of this indicates systematic, scientific thinking in the fullest sense. These were not primitive people stumbling through the dark of ignorance. These were systematic observers and thinkers who developed sophisticated models of celestial mechanics, who could predict events with precision, who understood that the cosmos operated according to knowable patterns that could be discovered through patient observation and analysis. The loss of this knowledge when Teotihuacan collapsed represents a tragedy of immense proportions. Later Mesoamerican cultures retained some astronomical knowledge. The Maya in particular were renowned astronomers, but whether they possessed the full depth of what Teotihuacan's astronomer priests knew remains uncertain. Some knowledge was clearly transmitted, appearing in modified form in later cultures, but much seems to have been lost, vanishing with the dispersal of Teotihuacan's specialists and the breaking of transmission lines. The pyramids remain as monuments to this lost knowledge, their alignments and proportions still accurate, still pointing to the celestial events they were designed to mark, but the full understanding of how they were used and what they signified is something we are still working to reconstruct.
As the sun moves across the sky above the Pyramid of the Sun, casting shadows that would have been meaningful to ancient observers, we are reminded that the pyramid is not merely an artifact from the past, but a continuing presence, still aligned with the cosmos, still marking the same celestial events it was designed to mark millennia ago. The sun still sets where the ancient builders knew it would set. The stars still rise in their appointed positions. The cosmic patterns continue unbroken. What has been broken is our connection to the knowledge that could read these patterns fully, that could understand what the pyramid's builders understood. Reconstructing that connection, recovering that knowledge, remains one of the great challenges and opportunities of contemporary archaeology and archaeoastronomy. The mystery of why the mica was later removed from certain areas of the pyramid adds another layer to this already complex puzzle. Archaeological evidence indicates that at some point, possibly during Teotihuacan's decline or after its abandonment, substantial quantities of mica were extracted from the pyramid. This was not casual looting by random individuals, but rather systematic removal that required knowledge of where the mica was located and significant effort to access and extract it. Why would someone go to such trouble to remove mica that had been so carefully placed centuries earlier? The most straightforward explanation is economic value. Mica, as we have established, was a precious material at Teotihuacan, valuable enough to justify transporting it across thousands of miles. If the city was in decline, if central authority was breaking down, if the religious and social structures that had protected the pyramid's sanctity were collapsing, then the mica would have represented wealth that could be extracted and used or traded. Removing mica from the pyramid would be comparable to stripping lead from church roofs or gold from temple walls, acts of desperate economic opportunism that occur when societies collapse and the sacred protections that normally guard precious materials break down. But there is another possibility, more intriguing if more speculative. Perhaps the mica was removed not for its material value, but for its functional or spiritual power. If the mica was understood to serve specific purposes, to enable certain rituals or effects, then removing it would disable those functions. This might have been done deliberately by people who wanted to prevent the pyramid from being used in certain ways, perhaps religious reformers who rejected old practices, perhaps conquerors who wanted to neutralize the power of Teotihuacan's sacred sites. Perhaps even by Teotihuacan's own people if they came to fear or reject the power that the pyramid represented. The timing of the mica's removal is difficult to determine precisely. Some might have been removed while Teotihuacan was still occupied, during the troubled period of the city's decline. Some might have been removed shortly after abandonment by people from nearby communities who knew about the mica and saw an opportunity to claim valuable material. Some might have been removed much later by the Aztecs or other cultures who investigated the ruins and extracted materials for their own uses. Without more precise dating of the removal, which is difficult to establish archaeologically, we cannot definitively determine who removed the mica or why. What we can say is that not all mica was removed. The chambers discovered by modern archaeologists still contain substantial quantities of mica, enough to analyze and study, enough to establish that it was deliberately placed in significant amounts. This suggests that some mica chambers remained undiscovered or inaccessible to those who removed mica from other areas. Perhaps some chambers were more deeply buried or better sealed. Perhaps the removers did not have complete knowledge of where all the mica was located. Or perhaps they deliberately left some mica in place, either because they could not access it or because they felt some chambers should remain undisturbed. The discovery of these remaining mica deposits in modern times represents a fortunate accident of preservation. If all the mica had been removed in ancient or colonial times, we would know about it only from traces, from the spaces where it had been, from chemical residues or marks on surrounding stone. We would not have substantial samples to analyze, to study, to compare with source materials. The fact that significant mica remained in place allowed modern researchers to confirm its presence definitively, to determine its origin, to study its placement and position within the pyramid's architecture. This preservation is what makes the mica mystery accessible to us today. The removal of mica from some areas while it remained in others creates an interesting archaeological situation. By comparing areas where mica was removed with areas where mica remained, researchers can potentially learn about how removal was conducted, what knowledge or access the removers had, what motivated their actions. The patterns of removal might tell us something about ancient knowledge of the pyramid's interior architecture, about how information was or was not transmitted across time, about the changing fortunes and cultural contexts within which the pyramid existed across centuries.
We know that Teotihuacan was an ethnically diverse, a cosmopolitan center that attracted people from across Mesoamerica. Archaeological evidence shows distinct neighborhoods where people from different regions lived, maintaining some of their cultural traditions while participating in the larger life of the city. There was Zapotec compounds where people from Oaxaca lived, Maya compounds where people from the tropical lowlands to the south maintained their presence, and probably porters for people from other regions as well. This diversity suggests that Teotihuacan was not simply a city-state controlling a limited territory, but rather a place of regional or even pan-Mesoamerican significance, a center that drew people and resources from vast distances. We know that Teotihuacan was a major economic power, controlling important obsidian sources and producing obsidian tools and weapons that were traded throughout Mesoamerica. The city's craft specialists produced ceramics, textiles, and other goods that have been found at sites hundreds of miles away. Teotihuacan's economic reach, combined with its cultural influence, made it one of the dominant forces in Mesoamerican civilization during its time. Other cities showed Teotihuacan influence in their architecture, their art styles, their iconography, suggesting that Teotihuacan's power was not purely economic, but also cultural and perhaps political or military. But despite all this, the fundamental question remains: who were these people? What motivated them to build on such a grand scale? What beliefs and aspirations drove them to quarry countless tons of stone, to transport mica from thousands of miles away, to create a city whose sophistication and ambition continue to astonish us today? The lack of written records means we must rely on inference and interpretation, reading meaning from the structures and artifacts they left behind, always aware that we might be missing crucial context or misunderstanding what we see. The level of knowledge required to build Teotihuacan suggests a society with sophisticated educational or training systems, ways of transmitting technical knowledge from generation to generation. The mathematical understanding required for the city's layout, the astronomical knowledge needed for the precise alignments, the engineering expertise necessary for pyramid construction, all of this knowledge had to be learned, practiced, and passed on. This implies schools or apprenticeship systems, perhaps priestly colleges where young people learned astronomy and mathematics, workshops where craftsmen trained the next generation, oral traditions that encoded and transmitted crucial information. The organization of labor on the scale required for Teotihuacan's construction implies strong central authority, systems for mobilizing and coordinating the work of thousands or tens of thousands of people. This might have been theocratic, with religious authorities directing construction as a form of service to the gods. It might have been more conventionally political, with rulers using construction projects to demonstrate their power and legitimize their authority. It might have combined both elements, as religious and political power were often intertwined in ancient societies. What is clear is that someone had the authority to command labor on a massive scale and the administrative capability to organize and direct that labor effectively over long periods. The mica mystery becomes even more intriguing when we consider the knowledge systems that must have existed at Teotihuacan. Someone had to know that mica existed in Brazil, thousands of miles away. Someone had to organize the logistics of obtaining it. Someone had to understand why it was worth the effort. This implies not just local knowledge, but a sophisticated understanding of Mesoamerican geography, of trade routes and resources across vast distances. It implies communication networks capable of transmitting complex information across space. It implies perhaps specialists in mineralogy or material properties who understood different minerals and their uses. The possibility that Teotihuacan possessed what we might call proto-scientific knowledge, systematic understanding of natural phenomena based on observation and experimentation, is not as far-fetched as it might initially seem. Many ancient cultures developed impressive bodies of empirical knowledge. Chinese civilization, for instance, developed sophisticated understanding of medicine, chemistry, and physics through centuries of systematic observation and experimentation, creating technologies like gunpowder, paper, and the compass long before they appeared in Europe. Islamic civilization during its golden age made remarkable advances in mathematics, astronomy, optics, and other sciences. These achievements remind us that scientific knowledge does not develop in only one way or follow a single path, that different cultures at different times have developed sophisticated understanding of the natural world through various methodological approaches.
There is something poignant about the image of unknown people in a time we cannot precisely determine, making their way into the dark interior of the Pyramid of the Sun to extract mica that had been placed there with such care and effort centuries before. What did they think they were doing? Did they understand the original purpose of the mica, or had that knowledge already been lost? Did they feel they were desecrating a sacred space? Or had the pyramid already lost its sanctity in their eyes? Were they desperate for valuable material, or were they executing a deliberate plan to disable or reconfigure the pyramid's functions? We cannot know, but the questions remind us that the pyramid's history did not end when Teotihuacan was abandoned. The structure continued to exist, continued to influence people, continued to be used and modified and plundered across the centuries that followed its builder's departure. The colonial period brought new waves of interest in and interference with Teotihuacan's ruins. Spanish authorities were ambivalent about pre-Columbian monuments, sometimes viewing them as works of Satan that should be destroyed, sometimes recognizing them as evidence of sophisticated ancient civilizations. The pyramids at Teotihuacan were too massive to destroy easily, so they largely survived the colonial period intact, though they were allowed to deteriorate and were sometimes used as quarries for building materials. Colonial-era accounts of Teotihuacan exist, describing the ruins and sometimes reporting local legends about them, but systematic investigation did not begin until the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Modern archaeological excavation has been more careful and systematic than earlier interventions, but it too has altered the pyramid in various ways. Stabilization efforts to prevent collapse, the construction of stairs and railings for tourist access, the tunneling into the pyramid's interior to explore its structure. All of these have modified the monument even as they have revealed information about it. This is the paradox of archaeological investigation. To learn about structures, we must intervene in them, and our interventions inevitably change what we are studying. The challenge is to minimize destructive change while maximizing what can be learned. The mica that remains within the Pyramid of the Sun is now understood to be precious not for its economic value, but for its informational value, for what it can teach us about Teotihuacan's builders and their knowledge. Modern conservation efforts focus on preserving this mica in place, preventing further deterioration or removal, ensuring that future researchers will have access to this evidence. The mica that was removed in antiquity represents lost information, questions we cannot answer because the evidence has been destroyed. This makes the preservation of what remains all the more crucial. As we consider the mystery of the removed mica alongside the mystery of the mica that was placed originally, we are reminded that the Pyramid of the Sun has a complex history extending across more than 2 millennia. It has been built, used, modified, abandoned, looted, rediscovered, investigated, and preserved. Each of these phases has left its mark, has added layers of meaning and modification. Understanding the pyramid requires understanding this entire history, not just its original construction, but all that has happened to it since. The mica mystery is part of this larger story, one chapter in the long history of how humans have interacted with this extraordinary structure across the centuries. In recent decades, new technologies have opened new possibilities for investigating the Pyramid of the Sun and its mysteries. Ground-penetrating radar, which uses radio waves to image subsurface structures, has been used to map the pyramid's interior without requiring destructive excavation.
This technology has revealed the existence of previously unknown chambers and passages, suggesting that the pyramid's interior architecture is more complex than earlier researchers suspected. Some of these chambers may contain additional deposits of mica or other significant materials, but confirming this would require physical access, which poses challenges of both preservation and logistics. LiDAR technology, which uses laser pulses to create precise three-dimensional maps of structures and landscapes, has been employed at Teotihuacan to document the city's architecture with unprecedented precision. These detailed maps allow researchers to analyze spatial relationships and geometric patterns with accuracy that was impossible in earlier periods. LiDAR data has revealed subtle alignments and proportional relationships in the city's layout that were not apparent from conventional surveying methods. Some of these relationships suggest even greater astronomical and geometric sophistication than previously recognized. Thermal imaging, which detects infrared radiation and can map temperature variations across surfaces, has been used to study how the pyramid responds to heating from the sun. Different materials have different thermal properties. They heat up and cool down at different rates, so thermal imaging can potentially reveal differences in the pyramid's interior structure. Areas containing mica, with its low thermal conductivity, might show different thermal patterns than surrounding areas, though detecting such differences requires careful measurement and analysis, accounting for many variables including weather conditions, sun angle, and the time of day measurements are taken.
Computer modeling has become an increasingly powerful tool for understanding ancient structures. Researchers can create virtual models of the pyramid, incorporating all known information about its dimensions, materials, and internal architecture, and then test hypotheses by simulating different scenarios. For instance, models can show how sunlight would enter the pyramid through various openings at different times of year, helping identify whether certain chambers were positioned to be illuminated at astronomically significant moments. Models can also simulate acoustic properties, showing how sound would behave in different internal spaces, potentially revealing whether certain chambers were designed with acoustic considerations in mind. All of these modern technologies are providing new data, new perspectives, new ways of understanding the pyramid. But they also generate new questions and new interpretations that sometimes conflict with each other. Different researchers looking at the same data may draw different conclusions, may emphasize different aspects, may propose competing explanations. This is the nature of scientific investigation. Hypotheses are proposed, tested against evidence, refined or rejected based on what is found. The process is messy and iterative, rarely producing simple, definitive answers, but gradually building more complete and accurate understanding. The mica mystery exemplifies both the potential and the limitations of modern archaeological science. We have powerful tools for analyzing the mica itself, determining its composition, its origin, its physical properties. We have techniques for examining how it was placed within the pyramid, for mapping its position and relationship to other architectural features. We have frameworks for thinking about why it might have been valued, drawing on knowledge from material science, from comparative studies of how other cultures used mica, from understanding of Mesoamerican religion and cosmology. But ultimately, we cannot directly observe how the mica was used, cannot interview the people who placed it, cannot witness the rituals or practices that might explain its purpose. We are reconstructing a puzzle with many pieces missing, trying to see the full picture from fragments. This situation is not unique to the mica mystery, but characterizes much of archaeology. We work with incomplete information, with material remains that represent only a fraction of what once existed, with structures whose original contexts have been lost or altered. We develop interpretations that are always provisional, always subject to revision based on new evidence or new perspectives. The best we can do is to be careful, systematic, and honest about what we know and what we don't know, about which aspects of our interpretations are well supported by evidence and which are more speculative. In the case of the Pyramid of the Sun's Mica Secret, we know certain things definitively. The mica is there, it came from Brazil, it was deliberately placed in substantial quantities within the pyramid's structure. These are facts established beyond reasonable doubt. We can make strong inferences. The mica was valued highly enough to justify extraordinary effort in obtaining it. Its properties were understood, at least to some degree. Its placement was purposeful rather than random. These inferences are very well supported, though not absolutely certain. Beyond this, we enter the realm of hypothesis and speculation. What specific properties were valued, what specific purposes the mica served, how it related to Teotihuacan's religious beliefs and practices, whether it was part of technological systems we do not fully understand. These questions remain open, areas for continued investigation and debate. The process of investigation continues. New excavations conducted with modern techniques and guided by new questions may reveal additional information. New analytical methods may allow us to extract information from the mica that current techniques cannot access. New comparative studies examining how other cultures used mica or similar materials may provide insights applicable to Teotihuacan. New theoretical frameworks, drawing on advances in understanding human cognition, ritual practice, ancient technology, or other relevant fields, may suggest interpretations we have not yet considered. The mystery is not solved, but neither is it insoluble. It remains an active area of research, a question that continues to motivate investigation and thought. As we draw toward the conclusion of our exploration, let us consider what the Pyramid of the Sun and its Mica Secret might tell us about human nature, about our species' endless drive to create, to understand, to reach beyond ourselves toward something greater. The pyramid stands as testament to human ambition and capability, to what can be achieved when knowledge, labor, and vision combine in service of a grand purpose. The effort required to build this structure, the millions of adobe bricks shaped by hand, the tons of stone quarried and fitted, the mica transported from thousands of miles away, represents not just physical labor, but mental labor, planning and organization, technical knowledge, and artistic vision, all sustained across generations.
The people who built Teotihuacan were not so different from us, despite the vast gulf of time and cultural difference that separates us. They looked at the same stars we see, felt the warmth of the same sun, experienced the fundamental human desires for meaning, for connection with something larger than individual existence, for understanding the cosmos and our place within it. They created structures that embodied their understanding, that made abstract knowledge concrete, that served simultaneously practical, symbolic, and spiritual purposes. In doing so, they demonstrated capacities that we recognize as fundamentally human, the ability to plan for the long term, to organize collective effort toward distant goals, to encode information in physical forms that persist across time. The mica mystery, frustrating as it is in its incompleteness, offers us a valuable gift. It challenges our assumptions about what ancient peoples knew and could do. It resists easy categorization, fitting neither neatly into "they must have known about electrical properties," nor into "it was purely symbolic." This resistance to simple explanation is itself instructive, reminding us that reality is complex, that human knowledge and practice do not develop in single linear paths, that different cultures at different times have found different solutions to the challenges of existence and the quest for meaning. Consider what Teotihuacan's builders accomplished without resources we take for granted. They had no steel tools, no powered machinery, no computer-aided design, no modern surveying equipment, no written records in the conventional sense. Yet they created a city whose layout encodes sophisticated astronomical and geometric knowledge, whose major structures are aligned with precision to celestial events, whose engineering represents solutions to complex problems of structure and materials. They developed trade networks spanning thousands of miles,
organizational systems capable of mobilizing tens of thousands of workers, knowledge systems that transmitted complex technical information across generations. This should give us pause, should make us question narratives of simple progress from primitive past to sophisticated present. History is not a straight line from ignorance to knowledge, but rather a complex landscape of peaks and valleys, of knowledge gained and knowledge lost, of different civilizations developing different expertise in different domains. Teotihuacan's builders knew things we have forgotten. They also did not know things we consider basic. Both statements can be true simultaneously, and holding this tension is important for developing a mature understanding of human history. The mica in this larger context becomes a symbol of knowledge itself, something precious, something worth great effort to obtain, something that can be held and used even if its full significance is not apparent to outside observers. The builders of Teotihuacan sought knowledge about the cosmos, about materials, about how to create structures that would serve their purposes and embody their understanding. They encoded this knowledge in their city, in its layout and alignments, in the construction of their pyramids, in the materials they chose to incorporate even when those materials had to be obtained at great cost. They succeeded in creating something that has outlasted them by more than a millennium, something that continues to teach and inspire despite the loss of much of the cultural context that gave it meaning. We, the inheritors of this legacy, have responsibilities. We must work to preserve what remains, protecting these structures from deterioration and destruction so that future generations will have access to them. We must investigate carefully and systematically, using the best techniques available, but always with respect for the monument and awareness that our interventions, however well-intentioned, carry risks. We must interpret thoughtfully, neither dismissing ancient achievements as primitive, nor attributing to ancient peoples capabilities for which we have no evidence, but rather trying to understand what was actually achieved and what it tells us about human potential. Most importantly, we must remain humble in the face of what we do not know. The temptation in investigating mysteries like the mica is to reach for answers, to propose explanations that fill the uncomfortable void of uncertainty. But sometimes the most honest position is to say, we do not yet know, to hold questions open rather than foreclosing them with premature conclusions. The mica mystery has resisted easy explanation for decades, and it may continue to resist for decades more. This is not failure, but rather an invitation to continued investigation, to developing new questions and new methods that might eventually unlock what has remained hidden. The mystery of the Pyramid of the Sun's mica extends beyond the material itself, to encompass larger questions about human civilization and the nature of knowledge. What does it mean when a civilization develops sophisticated understanding in specific domains, astronomy, architecture, mathematics, while not developing in other areas that we might consider fundamental, like written language or certain technologies? How do we assess and compare different civilizations' achievements when they excel in different ways? What can studying ancient mysteries teach us about the diversity of human cultural expression and the multiple paths that human societies can take? These questions become particularly pressing as we contemplate the mica and what it might represent. If the builders of Teotihuacan understood certain properties of mica, its thermal resistance, its electrical insulation, perhaps even its piezoelectric characteristics, what does this tell us about their worldview and their approach to knowledge? Modern science operates within a specific conceptual framework. Hypotheses are tested through controlled experiments. Theories are expressed in mathematical form. Knowledge is recorded in written texts that allow for precise transmission across distance and time. But this is not the only way to generate and maintain knowledge. Many pre-modern and non-Western cultures developed sophisticated understanding of natural phenomena through different epistemological approaches.
Knowledge might be transmitted orally through trained specialists, encoded in ritual practices, embedded in craft traditions passed from master to apprentice. Understanding might be holistic rather than reductionist, seeing connections and relationships rather than isolating variables. Explanation might be framed in terms of spiritual forces and sacred geography rather than in terms of abstract scientific principles. Yet such knowledge systems could be highly effective, allowing cultures to work with materials and natural phenomena in sophisticated ways. If we apply this perspective to Teotihuacan and the Mica mystery, we might imagine knowledge systems quite different from modern science, but nonetheless effective at discovering and applying understanding of Mica's properties. Perhaps through systematic experimentation framed in ritual terms, perhaps through careful observation passed through generations of specialists, perhaps through intuitive understanding developed through extensive hands-on work with materials. Teotihuacan's builders might have learned what mica could do and developed uses for it that made sense within their worldview, even if those uses seem strange or mysterious to us. This does not require us to attribute supernatural knowledge or to invoke ancient astronauts or other fringe explanations. It simply requires recognizing that different cultures can develop genuine understanding of natural phenomena through different methodological and conceptual frameworks. The challenge for us is to try to understand their framework well enough to recognize what they knew, even when it is expressed in terms unfamiliar to us or embedded in practices whose purposes we do not immediately grasp. The pyramid itself can be understood as a form of knowledge encoding, a three-dimensional text that embodies information about astronomy, mathematics, cosmology, and perhaps other domains. Someone trained in the appropriate knowledge system could read the pyramid, could understand what its proportions and alignments revealed, could use it as a tool for calculation and prediction. The mica chambers might be part of this larger system of encoded knowledge, positioned where they are for reasons that made sense within the overall logic of the pyramid's design, even if we have not yet reconstructed that logic fully. This way of thinking about architecture as encoding knowledge has parallels in other cultures. Gothic cathedrals, for instance, embody theological and mathematical principles in their design, with proportions and relationships chosen to reflect sacred geometry and cosmological understanding. Someone educated in medieval theology and mathematics could read a cathedral's architecture, understanding what its dimensions and decorations revealed about divine order and human relationship to God. Similarly, Islamic architecture often incorporates complex geometric patterns that embody mathematical principles and philosophical ideas about infinity, order, and the relationship between part and whole. The architecture is not merely decorative or functional, but educational and revelatory, teaching and demonstrating principles that are central to the culture's worldview.
If we understand the Pyramid of the Sun in similar terms as architecture that teaches, that embodies principles, that encodes knowledge in physical form, then every element of its construction potentially carries meaning. The choice of materials, their sources and properties, their positions and relationships, all of these might have been determined not just by practical considerations or aesthetic preferences, but by their appropriateness within a larger symbolic and functional system. The mica in this reading was placed where it was because that position made sense within the pyramid's overall logic, serving purposes that were simultaneously practical, symbolic, astronomical, and perhaps technological in ways we are still learning to recognize. This interpretive approach does not provide definitive answers. We still do not know exactly what the mica was for, but it does provide a framework for thinking about the problem in terms that take seriously the sophistication of Teotihuacan's builders. rather than dismissing the mica as merely symbolic in some vague sense or insisting it must have had technological functions we can recognize from our modern perspective. We can explore the possibility that it served purposes that were complex and multifaceted, that made sense within a knowledge system different from ours, but no less legitimate for that difference. The interdisciplinary nature of contemporary research on Teotihuacan reflects this more nuanced approach. Archaeologists work with materials scientists to understand the properties of materials found at the site. Astronomers and archaeoastronomers study the alignments and their significance. Anthropologists and historians of religion examine comparative evidence from other cultures to understand possible meanings and functions. Computer scientists develop models and simulations. All of these perspectives contribute to building more complete understanding, recognizing that no single discipline or approach is sufficient to grasp the full complexity of what Teotihuacan's builders achieved. The mica mystery benefits from this interdisciplinary attention. Materials scientists can tell us exactly what properties the mica has. Archaeologists can document where it was found and how it was placed. Astronomers can determine what celestial events might be relevant to its positioning. Anthropologists can explore how other cultures have used mica or similar materials. Computer modelers can simulate how light or sound might behave in chambers containing mica. Each perspective adds pieces to the puzzle, though the full picture remains elusive. As research continues, employing ever more sophisticated techniques and benefiting from improved theoretical frameworks, we may gradually develop better understanding of the mica's purpose and significance. Or we may not. Some mysteries resist solution despite our best efforts, either because crucial evidence has been lost or because we lack the conceptual tools necessary to interpret what remains. Either way, the process of investigation itself is valuable, pushing us to think more deeply about ancient civilizations, about different forms of knowledge, about the diversity of human cultural expression, about how to interpret material remains when cultural contexts have vanished. The Pyramid of the Sun, with its hidden layers of mica, stands as both monument and mystery, testament to human achievement and reminder of human limitations. We can measure it precisely, map its dimensions, analyze its materials, study its alignments, but we cannot fully recover the lived experience of those who built it and used it, cannot completely reconstruct the worldview that made its construction meaningful and necessary. This incomplete understanding should not discourage us, but rather should inspire appropriate humility combined with determination to learn what can be learned, to preserve what remains, to ask better questions even when complete answers elude us. In the end, we return to where we began, standing before the Pyramid of the Sun as light breaks across its ancient stones, knowing more than when we started our investigation, but still far from complete understanding. The journey through the mystery of the mica has taken us deep into questions about ancient knowledge and technology, about astronomy and geometry, about ritual and meaning, about how to interpret material remains when cultural contexts have vanished. The mica itself remains where it was placed so many centuries ago, buried within the pyramid's heart, performing whatever function it was meant to perform, embodying whatever meaning it was meant to carry. It is still there, still waiting, patient as the stone that surrounds it, ready to yield its secrets to those who develop the right questions, the right tools, the right perspectives to unlock its significance. Modern researchers continue their investigations, continue to apply new technologies and new theoretical frameworks, continue the slow process of building understanding from fragments and traces.
What can we say definitively as we conclude our exploration?
We can say that the Pyramid of the Sun is an extraordinary achievement, representing knowledge and capability that command respect and admiration across the millennia that separate us from its builders. We can say that the mica within it is genuinely mysterious, its presence difficult to explain through conventional interpretations, its significance not yet fully understood. We can say that the builders of Teotihuacan were sophisticated observers and thinkers, capable of systematic work with materials and celestial phenomena, able to encode complex information in architectural forms. We can say that much has been lost: knowledge, cultural context, the meanings that made this structure fully comprehensible to those who created and used it, but that much also remains, preserved in the physical reality of the pyramid and in the materials it contains. We can say, too, that mystery is not failure. The fact that we do not yet fully understand the mica's purpose does not diminish what we have learned about Teotihuacan and its builders. Rather, the persistence of mystery invites continued engagement, continued investigation, continued thought. It reminds us that the past is not a closed book, fully read and understood, but rather an ongoing conversation between present and past, a dialogue in which we bring our questions and methods to bear on what remains, and in return, the past challenges our assumptions, surprises us with its complexity, teaches us about the diversity of human achievement and aspiration. The Avenue of the Dead still stretches through the heart of Teotihuacan, leading from the southern entrance northward toward the Pyramid of the Moon, just as it did when pilgrims walked its length centuries ago. The Pyramid of the Sun still rises beside it, massive and serene, its surfaces weathered but its essential form intact, its alignments still precise, its hidden chambers still holding their secrets. The mica still lies in darkness, crystalline and reflective, waiting for light that may or may not come, maintaining its properties across the centuries, stable and patient. Visitors come from around the world to stand before these structures, to climb the steep steps of the pyramid, to walk the avenue and imagine what it was like when the city thrived. Some come seeking spiritual experiences, drawn by beliefs about ancient wisdom or energy. Some come as tourists, checking off a famous site on their travel lists. Some come as scholars, seeking to understand through systematic investigation. All of them, in their different ways, engage with the mystery of Teotihuacan, participate in the ongoing human conversation with this monument from the past. What does the future hold for Teotihuacan and for the mica mystery? Continued preservation efforts will work to protect the structures from deterioration, ensuring that future generations will have access to them. Continued archaeological investigation will slowly reveal more about the site, adding pieces to the puzzle of understanding. New technologies will provide new ways to examine the pyramid and its contents without destroying what they seek to study. New theoretical frameworks will suggest new interpretations, new ways of thinking about what the evidence reveals. The work continues, generation after generation, each building on what previous researchers discovered, each contributing to the slow accumulation of knowledge. Perhaps someday, through some combination of new evidence and new insight, the mica mystery will be solved. Perhaps researchers will discover documents or artifacts that explain definitively what the mica was for, how it was used, what it meant to those who placed it within the pyramid. Perhaps some brilliant interpretive breakthrough will make sense of all the evidence in a way that suddenly seems obvious, that resolves the contradictions and answers the questions. Or perhaps the mystery will persist, remaining always slightly beyond our grasp, a puzzle that yields some answers but never quite all of them, a reminder that the past maintains its own privacy even as we work to understand it. Either way, the Pyramid of the Sun will endure. It has already survived more than 1,800 years, weathering the collapse of the civilization that built it, the arrival of new cultures and new religions, the
transformations of colonial period and modern development, it will likely survive centuries more, continuing to stand as monument to human achievement, as mystery inviting investigation, as connection between past and present and future. The mica within it will endure as well, its crystalline structure stable across geological timescales, preserving its properties and its position, maintaining the puzzle that has fascinated researchers for generations. There is something fitting about this persistence of mystery. In our age, where information seems instantly available, where we expect answers to be only a search query away, where mystery and uncertainty make us uncomfortable, the Pyramid of the Sun reminds us that some questions take time, that understanding develops slowly, that not everything yields its meaning easily. This is a valuable reminder, a corrective to our expectations of instant comprehension. The pyramid teaches patience, teaches respect for complexity, teaches humility in the face of what we do not know.
It also teaches wonder. To stand before this massive structure, knowing the effort and knowledge that went into its creation, knowing the mysteries it still holds, is to experience genuine awe, not the cheapened awe of entertainment or spectacle, but the deeper awe that comes from encountering something genuinely extraordinary, something that exceeds our ability to fully comprehend. This awe is itself valuable, connecting us to fundamental human responses to excellence and mystery, reminding us of our own smallness in the face of great achievements and vast stretches of time. The story of the Pyramid of the Sun and its Mica Secret is ultimately a human story, a story about our species' endless drive to create meaning, to understand the cosmos, to build structures that will outlast us and carry messages to futures we will not see. The builders of Teotihuacan reached across time to us with their architecture, with the materials they chose, with the knowledge they encoded in stone and alignment. We reach back to them through our investigations, our attempts to understand what they achieved and what they knew. This reaching across time, this dialogue between past and present, is one of the most profound activities human beings engage in, one of the ways we transcend our individual mortality and participate in something larger and longer lasting than a single life. As the sun climbs higher into the sky, warming the ancient stones, casting shorter shadows across the plazas, we prepare to leave the pyramid, carrying with us the questions and insights our investigation has generated. We have walked the Avenue of the Dead, climbed the steep steps, stood at the summit looking out across the valley, descended again to ground level. We have considered the mica in its darkness, hidden from the sun, performing whatever function it performs, maintaining whatever meaning it carries. We have explored theories and examined evidence, balanced skepticism and openness, tried to do justice to both what we know and what we do not know. The pyramid remains, solid and enduring, as it has remained for centuries and will remain for centuries more. The mica remains within it, stable and patient, keeping its secrets. And we return to our own time, carrying with us a deeper appreciation for the sophistication of ancient Mesoamerican civilization, a more nuanced understanding of the complexity of human knowledge systems, a sense of connection to those ancient builders who achieved so much with so little, who encoded their understanding in forms that have outlasted their culture and their language, who created monuments that continue to teach and inspire long after the last person who fully understood them has passed from the earth. The mystery of the mica may never be completely solved. The full truth about what Teotihuacan's builders knew and what they were trying to accomplish may remain forever beyond our reach, lost in the depths of time and cultural difference that separate us from them. But the pursuit of understanding, the careful investigation, the thoughtful interpretation, the preservation for future study, all of this is worthwhile in itself,
regardless of whether it leads to definitive answers. The journey of investigation is itself valuable, teaching us about the past and about ourselves, about human potential and human limitation, about the endless varieties of human cultural expression and the fundamental commonalities that connect us across time and difference. As we take our leave of the Pyramid of the Sun, as we walk once more down the Avenue of the Dead toward the modern world that waits beyond the archaeological zone, we carry with us the gift that all genuine mysteries offer, the recognition that reality is richer and more complex than we imagined, that there are always more questions to ask, more possibilities to explore, more wonders to discover. The pyramid has been generous, sharing some of its secrets while maintaining others, inviting us into its mystery while resisting easy explanation. This balance between revelation and concealment is perhaps the most valuable teaching of all, reminding us that understanding is a process rather than a destination, that wisdom involves knowing both what we know and what we do not know, that the most profound relationship with the past involves not mastery, but rather respectful engagement with difference, with distance, with mystery that may never fully yield to our understanding, but that enriches us through our attempts to comprehend it. The Pyramid of the Sun stands beneath the Mexican sky, ancient and mysterious, monument and enigma, achievement and question. The mica lies hidden within its heart, crystalline and reflective, purposeful and puzzling. The Avenue of the Dead stretches silent and grand, bearing witness to ceremonies long ended, to knowledge partly lost, to a civilization's rise and fall and enduring presence in stone. And we, the inheritors and investigators, continue our work, asking our questions, applying our methods, seeking to understand while knowing we may never understand completely, connected across millennia to those ancient builders by our shared humanity, our shared desire to create meaning, our shared wonder at the vast cosmos within which we briefly live and struggle and build and hope and dream.
The sun continues its ancient journey across the sky, the same sun that Teotihuacan's priests tracked and honored, the same cosmic force that gave the pyramid its name and that still illuminates its stones with light that has traveled across space to reach us. Day follows night, year follows year, century follows century, and the pyramid endures, waiting, teaching, holding its mysteries, inviting investigation, rewarding patience, reminding us always that the past speaks to us still if we have the wisdom to listen, that ancient achievements deserve our respect and our careful attention, that the quest for understanding is noble even when complete understanding remains elusive, that mystery itself is valuable, keeping alive our sense of wonder, our humility, our awareness that we do not know everything and perhaps never will. This is the gift of the Pyramid of the Sun and its Mica Secret. Not easy answers, but profound questions. Not simple explanations, but complex invitations to thought and investigation. Not mastery over the past, but respectful dialogue with it. The pyramid stands, the mica waits, the mystery endures, and we continue our work, generation after generation, seeking understanding, preserving evidence, asking questions, building slowly toward deeper comprehension of what humans have achieved and what we yet might achieve if we combine knowledge with vision, patience with ambition, respect for the past with hope for the future. The ancient city of Teotihuacan, the place where the gods were born, continues to teach us, continues to challenge us, continues to inspire us.
The Pyramid of the Sun, with its hidden layers of mica, its precise alignments, its massive presence, and its enduring mysteries, stands as testament to human potential, to what we can accomplish when we commit ourselves to great purposes, when we apply knowledge and labor and vision to creating something that will outlast us, something that will speak across time to people we will never know, something that will challenge and inspire and teach long after we have passed from the earth. This is the legacy of Teotihuacan's builders. This is the gift they have given us. This is the mystery they have bequeathed to us, inviting us to engage with it, to study it, to preserve it, to pass it on to future generations who will bring their own questions and methods and perspectives to bear on these ancient stones. The work continues, the mystery endures. The pyramid stands, eternal and patient beneath the Mexican sun, waiting for all who would approach with reverence and curiosity, with respect for what has been achieved and humility about what remains unknown, with determination to learn and openness to being surprised, with recognition that in studying the past we learn not only about those who came before, but also about ourselves, about what it means to be human, about the long arc of human aspiration and achievement that connects us all, past and present and future, in the endless human quest for meaning, understanding, and connection with something larger than ourselves.